think it's this one.
Yep,
Maybe
I think we're
one, the
good.
espresso, but I'm like, probably it's landlocked over there. So have it.
Yes. Yeah. They ended up hiring people that were local.
Okay, good evening. Good evening. I'd like to call this special meeting of the North Branford Conservation and Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency to order. Again, on Monday, December 16, 2019, at approximately 7:34 p.m. First, I'd like to do a roll call of everyone seated here this evening. To my left, we have regular members Frank Pagano, Ashley Joyner, and Jerry Fishbeck. And to my right, we have Recording Secretary Mary Caruso. We have our Town Planner and Wetlands Administrator Carrie Duquesne, and I'm Steve Scavo. I'll be acting as chairman for this evening's meeting. So I guess we'll move on to item 4, public hearing. Item A, IWWA 2019-3, site plan for construction of an active adult community, including 103 detached single-family homes and 3 apartment buildings consisting of approximately 100 units, clubhouse, in-ground pool, tennis courts, associated roads, stormwater drainage, extension of sanitary sewer, public water, communications, electric, and gas utilities. Proposed work will result in the filling of approximately 11,690 square feet of wetlands, 900 square foot of watercourse, and alteration of approximately 9 acres of 100-foot wetland upland review area at 50 Fowler Road. Owner applicant Munger Brook Associates LLC. Application received July 24, 2019. Item continued on August 28, 2019. Public hearing opened October 23rd, 2019, and continued to November 20th, 2019, and December 11th, 2019. Site walks held on November 9th and November 23rd of 2019.
So, real quick, number 3, the minutes, we'll just continue those because I don't think I had included them in your packet. Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good, 'cause I didn't see it.
Yep.
We ready?
Okay. So, good evening. Again, my name is Joe Porto. I represent the applicant, Munger Brook Associates. And first and foremost, I want to thank you all again for arranging your schedules to allow us to come back tonight so that we could, fingers crossed, conclude the public hearing for this. So our comments hopefully will be brief, and again, happy to respond to any comments the commission may have. You are familiar with our design team. Picking up where we left off last week, I submitted to Carrie, and I have copies for you if you would like them, a small modification to the language I had given you before to specifically state that no fertilizers, herbicides, or pesticides will be applied to any lawn area that falls within 50 feet of a wetland boundary, which was one of the requests that was made.
So those are just being passed out right now.
Okay, and I have additional copies if needed. My office did have a chance to speak with attorney Barbara Schellenberg of Cohn & Wolf, who is town council, and we discussed the developer's interest and willingness in the walking trail, but had a conversation with regard to how we are going to start to unravel and deal with liability issues. And we explained that the applicant is in favor of the walking trail. You're going to hear from Mr. Ott how he was able to effectuate the moving of 2 units that we discussed last week to allow greater access for the public to the trolley road path. But the issue of how we're going to deal with it is going to take a little bit of time to resolve. We are looking at deeding off certain portions of the project, and are going to have to look at certain indemnity agreements, hopefully, either with the land trust or potentially the town, which we anticipate working out as we work through the site plan approval process. And last, Mr. Ott provided, and we delivered to you hopefully Saturday morning before 10:30, the site plans that have the unit numbers on them, so we can have a more substantive conversation, if you will, with regard to exact units. So those were all the items that we said we would check off before this evening. I would like Mr. Ott to come up and to respond to some of the comments that came from the town engineer. And then Mr. Lord will follow with some additional comments, having had a chance to review in a little more detail the landscape plan, and then any questions or concerns you guys may have.
Good evening again. Just for the record, I'm Mike Ott. I'm a professional engineer and land surveyor with Summerhill Civil Engineers in Madison. Let's see, a couple things. I realized over the weekend when I checked that I made a mistake in numbering the units. If you look, the last unit goes to 110, it should be 109. I skipped number 90. So if you try to look for a 90, you won't find it, I don't think, on the plan. So I don't think it really means anything. It's just the numbers are just a way for you to identify. But I just wanted to point out that it's 109 units. So in checking that made me realize I had made a mistake a long time ago in the application, in the revised narrative. I said that there are 103 residences, and I think we need to correct that for the record. So there are I'll try to do this as clear as I can. There are 85 detached buildings, single-family homes, single dwelling unit buildings, 85. And then there are 12 duplex buildings. So there's a total of 97 buildings, but the total number of dwelling units is 109. So 85 buildings with one dwelling unit in them, 12 buildings with two dwelling units in them. 85 plus 24 is 109 dwelling units.
If I might ask now, I noticed that there are a number of buildings where the two footprints were exactly together. Those must be the duplexes you were
Those are the
talking
12
about.
duplexes, yes, sir.
But I did also notice that if you divided those duplexes in half, each individual half of it was approximately the same size as every other individual home.
Correct,
You
yes.
just stuck them together.
Right, those are the architectural drawings that were provided to me, architectural footprints.
Okay.
So just to clear that up, so in my checking of the numbering, I kept coming up with 109. I thought, so I triple checked it. So that is correct. It's 109 dwelling units in 97 total freestanding buildings.
Okay, but for our reference, we're gonna go by the numbers you provided us.
Oh, yeah,
I was just
yeah.
gonna say, that if that's all right, let's go by
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
No, we're not renumbering, so the
Yeah.
city.
No.
So-
Skip 90.
I was just gonna suggest what Ashley said, if that's
Yeah,
okay, I think we're all gonna go with the numbers that aren't here now, because that'll address what we need to address.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
If you're looking for a number 90, though, you won't
Okay,
find it.
that's good, no, it's good that, no,
Okay.
we're not gonna renumber tonight, we're gonna go with what's there, okay, good.
The other thing is, I was, well, before I get to that, I think I have addressed all of the town engineer's comments on the plan so far. I spoke to him today, and he said he wouldn't have any new comments for tonight. He'll have comments for the planning, as part of the planning and zoning application, but I believe I've addressed, in the last drawings we gave to you, we delivered to you last week sometime, I believe I've addressed all his comments regarding the plans. The Thursday afternoon, he gave me comments on the drainage report that I had submitted, so I've attempted to address all his comments here in this revised drainage report, which I'd like to submit for the record if I could.
Okay.
And I apologize for the very unprofessional binding, John, but that's all the time I had.
It works.
It works. At the last meeting, we talked about a way to, one or more of you, maybe Commissioner Fischbach had the good idea to move those buildings apart at that intersection, if you remember, so that the trolley line trail could be moved, go through. And on those revised plans, on sheet 11, you should see that I was able to move them apart so that there's a 30-foot swath between the two buildings. So that should show up on sheet 11 of the plans that were delivered to you over the weekend.
The edge.
Between 79 and 78?
Yes.
Yes.
And 79 and 80 are duplex.
So that opening between those buildings is a little over 30 feet.
Would it be appropriate to comment on that now or later?
It's public, we can comment now, or
Yeah.
should we wait till did you want to finish, or do you want
Oh,
us to accept
no, no,
comments as we
go-
go on? It's up to you, it's, you know. Okay,
No, go ahead.
Maybe if you could come over here and look at the map you provided me with. Basically, here's the road, which is the old trolley trail. And if I were to go on the north side of the road, I believe that's north. Yeah,
Yeah.
if I were to go on the north side of the road and follow that sidewalk, I drew a line from approximately here right through along down into the trolley trail. And I actually wind up, if you didn't do this jog, I actually wind up in there, back porch. But you did a jog, you
Yeah.
spread them apart and you jogged it. But I was wondering if we could maybe keep the trolley trail straight as it was intended to be, because trains can't. If we could do that, it would be a simple matter of either rotating this house or bringing it closer to the cul-de-sac.
So we can't bring it closer because.
Setbacks?
No, because part of the planning and zoning application, we have to provide parking spaces within the driveway and the driveway from the back of the sidewalk.
So
is correct.
so setbacks.
But we could look at changing the unit style so that we could pull it back, whatever that dimension is.
Or,
Pull it back.
or like I said, rotating it.
Well, we'd have to change the unit style because rotating it would put from the elevations
Right.
facing the road.
But I was planning on addressing this issue later, as far as the preservation of the actual trolley trail, not zigzagging around to assimilate it.
Sure. I don't see why we couldn't change that. We'd have to just change the unit style.
Figure since you touched on that, it was get it taken care of.
But the sewer, that's the storm sewer, that's not gonna change, right? That'll stay the same.
Right, but that's obviously, all you'll see,
Underground.
all you'll see is the manhole covers.
Should we, do you have other things that you want to address, or should we start at sheet 8 and kind of go through the units?
Sure.
Yeah, I
That
just wanted to get on the record what I said about,
Right.
Kurt's comments and the drainage report.
Right,
And
right.
we tried to do what you asked.
Did you want to
Yes.
finish it and then we'll start, or?
I think, I don't really have anything else.
Sure, okay, that's fine, we
Yeah.
just want to make sure, and I know,
Yeah.
David Lord wants to speak, Dave wants to come.
Yeah, you
Do
want
finish?
us to
You wanna finish?
first, and then?
Maybe let them finish, and then we'll jump into this,
Yeah.
because this is gonna take a while. I think.
Right. And
If
just,
that's right.
Kurt's comments,
Mhm.
we've not seen them, have we?
So he, as Mike said, Kurt sent an email to Mike on Thursday, with comments specifically relating to the drainage report. And so, as Mike said, it sounds like he's addressed those in here, but obviously Kurt hasn't had a chance to look at them, so Kurt may have comments back as a result of that, but we don't
Okay.
We
know.
won't know until the next.
Right.
meeting.
Right.
Gotcha.
But as far as comments on the plans that were submitted on Friday, they were relating more to the stormwater report.
Yeah, that's, just to be clear, I think, and Carrie, tell me if you disagree, in talking to Kurt, I believe I've addressed all his plan comments, the drawings. But the drainage report, just like Carrie said, we received the comments on Thursday, and Kurt obviously has to review it. So I've attempted to address all his comments, and I spoke to him today about it on the phone.
Okay.
Sorry.
So one of those things, just while we're talking about this, one of his comments is it possible to infiltrate some roof runoff from units on the west side of the trolley crossing? That's one that does relate to the plans
Yes.
and the drainage report, so
So,
is
if I
that,
could look at the drainage report, I can point you, Kurt, we talked about this on the phone today. He thought it would be sufficient, what I said was, that I was trying to read.
so maybe while you're looking at that, we can just, I can try and direct everyone to that page.
So what Kurt and I talked about was, if you were to kind of zoom out, you'll notice that Road A, you'll remember, Road A and Road B are in the woods, on areas untouched by the earth removal and processing operation. So in those areas in the woods, we know from some soil mapping and the site walks, and because no cuts have been made, no excavations have been made, that we should have enough soil over rock to infiltrate stormwater from the roofs. So what Kurt asked me to do is put some language in the stormwater management report that says, and I'll read this to you, roof water from the detached single-family residence served by Road A and Road B will be directed to individual infiltration systems located at the building's rainwater reserves. The remainder of the buildings, the roof water will be discharged to the ground. So that's how we agreed to address that. So on Road A, I just happen to remember there are 28, actually, part of Road A and part of Road B, you'll see where it goes all the way up to 28 buildings. I think it might be a total of 34 or so. I have a sheet.
This is the next page.
Right. 36, so 36 buildings will have are in the woods today, and will have their roof water put in subsurface infiltration systems.
And what is a subsurface infiltration system? Is that
Oh.
just a scrap stone with pipe, perforated pipe? What
No,
does that mean?
an actual storage reservoir into the ground, either a plastic gallery, like that you would use in the septic system, provides a storage reservoir under the ground so you wouldn't see it. So the rainwater leader comes down the side of the house, it goes under the ground, and it's connected to one or more of these galleries or chambers, so that they provide storage under the ground and allow the water to slowly seep into the ground.
From the storage tank or through pipe?
From that chamber has no bottom, it's like an upside down view.
Oh, all right.
So it functions like, in the old days, we used to call them dry wells, where water would just make into and just eventually infiltrate into the soil around it.
Yeah, and those chambers are used in the septic system applications.
Right, same, right.
Yeah.
That's what you'd be using then, okay.
We do, in coastal areas, we do this all the time, as a matter of regulation, we do this on rainwater leaders.
Did you want to discuss the plantings?
Sure, yeah, if you want to step up, Dave, sure.
No pressure.
And this is in addition to what we got last week?
Yes. The document I'm passing out now is a slight modification, addition to the November 20th report, which talks about the impacts to the upland review zone, and specifically those activities within 50 feet of the upland. of the outside wetland. For the sake of brevity, I won't go through the entire report, but what I will talk about is just a couple of highlights, and specifically those highlights relate to the planting plan that I have seen, and I believe the commission has also received a copy of the landscape plan over the weekend.
No.
No.
Last
We got the
Okay.
last meeting.
You have seen a copy of the landscape plan? Okay.
The one
I
dated,
think we only have
the one
one copy,
dated,
right?
the 22nd of November, I think is the last one we got. No, December 11th, I'm sorry,
It's not-
December 11th.
It's not extremely critical that you have to visually look at them. I just want to highlight some of the points that the landscaper has worked into the design specific to those activities within the 50-foot limit from the wetland. So I could point at the drawing, and if you have a drawing in front of you, but also look at that.
I don't think you all have a drawing of
This is the only things that we got.
right, reports.
Yes, those are my reports, the landscapers.
Yeah, we haven't seen
Okay.
that.
No.
Here, let me
Those
get it.
have not changed at the last meeting.
No, I only have one copy.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not set off.
So that's page 13, that's the first one.
It's probably best if I talk up here. If I'm not being heard, I'll speak a little
Oh,
louder.
these will pick you up.
Yeah, these are
Okay.
more, yeah.
Okay. For example, the houses that are now numbered 6, 7, and 8, which are the ones in this portion of the site. The numbers are not on the landscape plan, but they're in this area. At the last session, the commission, I presented a planting plan for the establishment of wildlife beneficial trees and shrubs in a portion of this upland and along the very toe of the fill slope for the roadway, and also for the removal of invasives and replanting of, or understory planting of berry-producing shrubs in this portion of the site. What you're seeing now is the landscaper's concept for the farther up the slope along the access roadway, the trees and the trees and the shrubs that will be planted into this area and wrap around through the entire arc of that. What this does is it adds a layer of protection for the wetland along with the enhancement plantings that we are doing there. And the separation distances are still the same, but the buildings now have an additional vegetative buffer and screening from the wetlands to the north and also along the tree line, and they limit the extent of, in quotes, rear yard area off of these buildings in the side area where new trees will be planted to that area. I talk about that as just another additional level of protection and separation for these three house units from the wetland that's in this area of the site.
Well, may I ask, because you just handed us this document and my eyes immediately went to this area, and it says in the paragraph, the last paragraph on page 2 where you're discussing this, it says the small wetland pocket prior to 2006 to be filled presently contains old metal machinery and other debris. But you don't say what's going to happen with that. You imply that you're going to fill over the old metal machinery and other debris. Is that correct?
No, the machinery would be taken out of there.
Oh, it's not in the document, though. You don't say that.
Okay,
That's just a normal course of construction. That there's
Oh, not in this town,
Yeah,
it's
but
not.
this is a
Okay,
legal document, it doesn't say that you're gonna take it out.
Well, then, since it doesn't say it, maybe we should just, if you're gonna act, make it part of the.
We'll just so stipulate that that would be taken out.
All right, I don't
My
wanna
focus-
assume.
No,
Yeah.
my focus of this is basically vegetation and impact on the
I
wetland.
understand.
The construction of the roadway through this area, and this is the pocket of wetland that we're talking about, that we
Correct.
saw on the sidewalk.
Correct.
Any man-made metal, other debris, plastics, whatever, from that area would be taken
We
out.
can make that a special condition then, technically, to cover that.
Would be taken out of
Yeah,
that
that's fine.
area.
Yep,
It's
yeah,
not
that's fine.
mentioned in mine
Should be
because
spelled out.
I'm not looking at the design of the roadway, so I'm not making comments on that.
No, I just, well, if you didn't put it in here, we wouldn't have known, so
It was in, well,
I wouldn't remember that.
that's not a change to the earlier document. We talked about that
Did we? I don't
at the,
remember.
when I presented the November 20th.
Okay, I don't
document.
remember.
The only thing that's different was the small wetland pocket prior to 2006, because it was a pocket with debris in it in 2006 when I looked at it. And I just put that in there to make sure that.
No problem,
everyone
we're gonna
understood.
take care of it, so it's okay.
So,
We assume you'll move it, you're not gonna pave
Okay.
around the machinery, so.
The area, and I think we talked about this, but I'll just touch on it. This area that's shown in my planting plan for Area B talks about the presence of invasives such as multiflora rose, burning bush, Russian, and autumn olive in this area of the site. We're gonna go in with the detailed plan, remove all of those invasives, and underplant a list of berry-producing shrubs into that area. Again, it's described in my planting plan for Area B.
Help me out 1 second,
Sure.
approximately where is that old shed that's sitting there now?
It is right
Is it?
there.
Right,
This is where the excavated pond
okay,
pool
Yep.
area is. The shed is immediately to the west
okay.
of that. It actually overlooks the little puddle of water.
So it's almost, it'll be in the roadway.
It'll be in the roadway, and obviously that would have to be taken out.
Okay.
That's what we walked up to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Remember that.
saw it from behind.
That was sort of where we turned around and came back
I thought it was like.
after that.
Yeah, it's not, because.
Because I've seen it now from Notch Hill Road.
Yeah, I saw from that show, so I drove by the other way.
Okay, moving on to house number unit 9, which is located here. Again, the landscaper has come up with plantings that are to the rear and to the side of unit number 9. For those of you that walked down there, and I know several of us did, it's relatively open, tall trees. It's a mature wooded area of the site, and visibility through is quite open. You can see the houses that are over on Frederick Street as you stand back on this side. The wetland is relatively narrow. These trees and shrubs are proposed in there as a visual barrier and a physical demarcation of areas that aren't going to be left clear. They're going to be enhanced. There's going to be berry-producing shrubs. The list of plant species that are on page 8 of the landscaping plan I've reviewed, and they're all native berry-producing shrubs that are going to be used in these types of areas where we're looking to enforce and increase the density of vegetation around the individual units, and especially those that are in closest proximity to the wetlands. The next one is Unit 24, which is on the area of roadway B. This is Unit 24. The wetland comes up, as we saw on the sidewalk, and comes in right through here. It's all overgrown with Russian olive. They've cleared for the area of the house, but this area is all overgrown with Russian olive that actually sits up a ways above the wetland. There's a slope break, a sharp face on the edge of the wetland in this area. Again, it's an indication to me that this area's been worked in the past. When this area was open and removed, native vegetation was taken out. What we're proposing to do is take out any invasives in this area and replant with native berry-producing shrubs and trees that will provide, again, native woody vegetation, wildlife enhancement, and a very dense buffer between the proposed house and the wetland that's to the east. Those, again, are samples of what the vegetation and the landscaping plan included elements of that are directly related to activities within the upland review zone. For the sake of, again, of brevity, I'll just, wherever there is a house, a structure, a building, whatever, within that 50-foot distance off of the wetland, the plantings that are proposed in there will provide that limit, that the rear yard, the use area where people can come out of their back door is going to be defined by that vegetation. We're not gonna have grass going all the way back beyond those limits. It's gonna be a limit, if you will. And there's other units 82, which is in another portion of the site, and you can use this to go back and forth to the different activities. This is the drawing. Should be the next page. Okay, this is 82. This is the area where you see the stockpiles today. All through here. That, as we said, is going to be cleared of those stockpiles. That material is all going to be taken out. The area is going to be regraded, topsoil, and graded so that it flows in the direction of the proposed raised solid lines off the back of the house. It's cleared in this area, obviously, because there are the stockpiles that will go right up to the limit of the trees in there. We have a series of tree and shrub plantings that are proposed. Specifically, I addressed this unit because all of this vegetation is going in to the rear and to the side of this particular building. But you'll see all of this is going to be revegetated once the stockpiles of
Is there gonna be any vegetation beyond this one?
Uh,
Which is the one less than 80, whatever you just mentioned?
No.
Because this is where the proposed walking trail is, if there's not gonna be any kind of buffer between that and the trail, the house and the trail, or the yard and the trail.
It's actually much closer.
Yeah, it goes right through here, it zigzags over there. And this one is also within the 50.
This one's in the 50?
Yes.
Yep. But there's no
How-
vegetation planting system for this one. I'm positive.
Okay, all right. It's just, what is it?
That's unit 81.
So from here, 0, the 100.
It looks like it's probably about 50 to the back of this.
Somewhere right through here would be about 50, I think. Protractor, you can draw a curve through it, but
0.
about halfway through the 100.
Yeah, it's about 1 1/4 is about the 50. It's about 50.
Yeah, it's just the back corner.
Yeah.
The stockpiles
Same with that one.
in this area of the site. The house unit itself is 50 feet away from the wetland.
Yes.
But these stockpiles, they're all gonna be taken out too, right?
All stockpiles are.
Okay, so what the commission is asking about an area like this that's to the rear of these units, there's no indication of landscape planting in there. We need to
Well, she may have missed that particular, you can see she did it in here where all these.
Yes, we were
She
talking
must
This
have-
about
is all
that.
wetlands right here.
I mean,
Well, there's
it would be.
wetlands right here also.
Right.
Yeah, we know, but there's no plantings.
For some reason, yeah, it
I
would be.
think she
Unless
she
it's
must
on a
have
different
just
sheet.
missed
I was just
that.
gonna say, because I'm sure the way her pattern
Yeah,
of
because
plantings, it would,
yeah.
that would make sense to add, maybe
We have-
visit that and add it, you know, I'm sure it's not a big deal,
Here.
but we certainly would like to see
Yeah,
some
she
shit.
did have, she had it here,
Oh,
right? Road C.
well, maybe she just didn't show.
No, it's road E.
Well, road E, I don't see,
Road
but
E is there.
but road C, this
Road
But
part.
she shows
This
this.
is the-
Road C.
What
She didn't
unit
show
or-
it.
one
I
second.
don't know what unit.
Here. Carol, this is the trolley coming up there, and here, the,
Right, 'cause here's the,
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's on this one.
so it's on this.
Oh, it is,
Okay,
good.
so that
So
part
she's
is
got
here.
plantings in
But
here.
we don't know anything behind this one.
So literally, she's got plantings right up there.
Not here, but not here.
One, okay, 122, 122. Okay, so there, the indicated plantings there basically stop right here. So we've got this zone.
So this zone.
Yeah, that's, we need to put something in there. So we'll just add that, have Marcy add that.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just an oversight, you can see
Yeah.
what she was trying to do.
Yeah, because she was good about doing it pretty
Yeah.
much everywhere
Yes.
else where there was, a
Yeah.
you know, for a while. So maybe, like you said, if she could just go over and add
That's
it
a
in
good,
there.
that's a good catch on the plan.
Mhm.
Well,
That point right there is
It's
actually
right here.
this. So those
So this
trees
far
actually
away.
go
To
this far.
no.
And then this whole
They
part
go
is.
further. See that closed contour that right there that says 130? Right where my fingertip is, see that closed circle that says 130?
Yeah,
There it is.
You're right.
there.
Look at it in
It
relationship
goes
to,
here.
so is this one stopping here?
It looks like it's right where your finger is.
Yes.
Jared, yes.
But, and we're asking, I guess, for.
She must have, yeah, so she looks like she missed in here.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we'll have her.
We'll have a look
No,
at
that's
that.
fine, just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
she can add that on, that's
Yeah.
important, so.
Okay.
Because that's all filled area now too.
Yeah.
It has to have the stop house.
We want that buffer here also, yeah, sure.
And this is a good drawing just to show, in previous presentations, we've talked about the use of the erosion control blankets. You can see the plantings that are proposed through the blankets for the establishment of trees and shrubs along. This is the trolley crossing on that slope. The seed is put down, then the erosion control blankets are anchored to the soil, and then the plantings are actually cut into the erosion control fabric and planted through the erosion control blanket to grow. It's done all the time. It's a very good blending of grass, herbaceous ground cover, and trees and shrubs to permanently stabilize the slope. Again, another landscape element that addresses the long-term stabilization and revegetation of those slope areas.
And those grasses don't grow so tall that they would interfere with any of the tree growth?
No. No, if you'll see, the landscapers' plants are generally taller than the ones I'm talking about and listing in my report. So, no, the competition there would not be, the good point, if you will, of using the erosion control blankets is that you specify what kind of ground cover vegetation and grass that you put in underneath the mats. And when it comes up through the mats, it's generally one that gets no more than a foot tall if you don't mow it. And that's not gonna be competing with any of the trees or shrubs that's in that area. It's not as, the level of competition isn't there from the species like they would be, say, on another portion of the site, again, because of the fact that this is existing vegetated area now. It doesn't have the invasive pressure that some of the other areas of the site have. So the last point an additional layer of revegetation. My plantings are shaded in the bottom of the stormwater wetland system. The landscaper has moved and established trees and shrubs around the outside, further up and out from the area where the water quality mechanisms will be working with the plantings that I've designed. Her plantings go further up the slope and around and are on the slope inside the top of the slope, because this is potentially part of the accessway and walkway system. So there will be top of the stormwater wetland grading walkway system, slightly down the slope, coming down, you'll have trees and shrubs, and then in the flat bottom, where stormwater enters, there'll be the emergent vegetation growing through the water in the bottom of the basin. Likewise, in the compensation area, the shaded areas, this shows up much nicer in the color versions. She used a very nice color of purple and whatever. The bottom is the deep marsh, the shallow marsh. She has some references to that. These relate to the particular species that I've called for in each of the areas. My planting, again, stops at the outside edge, goes slightly up the graded slope from the existing or proposed bottom of the stormwater wetland to the slope up to the existing ground. And then at the top of that slope and out is where the landscaper has come in with all of this vegetation. And this planting's all the way around from edge of wetland to edge of wetland, taking the reintroduction of native species all the way through. So this whole area, which is where the dirt bikes have the trail systems, a lot of invasives in there, and we're taking it and creating the wetlands in here. It's going to have a great transition. I'll just use this as an example. We're going to have relatively deep water here to shallow marsh, or to deep marsh to shallow marsh, trees and shrubs all the way out a good distance away from the mitigation compensation area. It's really going to be a great pocket, if you will, of native vegetation that's going to be established in there and allowed to establish itself.
So basically, when you design this, your plan and the landscaper's plan, they complement each other, right? In other words,
Exactly.
like you're attacking two different
Exactly.
areas,
We
but
don't,
the total
yeah,
plan.
we generally don't conflict with one another because
I mean,
the
that's
points
what
I'm
I'm just-
looking at are
yeah.
too wet for what
Right.
the landscaper usually likes to work with.
I'm just asking, it's
Yeah.
probably very obvious, but
There's no,
we need to hear that.
there's no overlap on this, in
Right.
this
There's no overlap.
particular plan. There's no overlap between the two planting plans.
It's more of a compliment to.
It's a complement. It extends the plantings
Right.
further out, away from where I'm
Plus-
doing the focus of my work.
So the plantings around there should enhance, otherwise, what you've created in there, right? Like I said, well, that's
Oh,
what
yes.
they compliment. Obviously, it should improve, it should help them function better. Is that what you're telling us? I mean,
It reestablishes native vegetation, it provides cover protection, nesting sites, food, diversity of habitat. What we have found over the years is the establishment of trees in this area and the use of trees outside will serve as perches for shallow wading birds that will use those as perches to spy frogs and other amphibians that are utilizing these areas. And you'll actually see wading birds walking through these types, especially this one.
like egrets and things like that you would see.
I'm sorry?
Like egrets, birds that you
Yes.
find on the shoreline or.
Great blue heron,
Blue herons are-
very common to find them in the compensation areas that are designed like
Oh,
this.
good.
Behind 108 and 109, these ones are flagged, this one touches the 50 as well.
Mhm.
What's planned to limit the lawn back here?
This area is shown, is going to have the erosion control blankets established, and the tree line is probably very close, which is why she did not include any plantings beyond here where this building juts
Right,
out.
but the tree line is actually the wetland border.
Well, the wetland border is over here.
Yeah.
This, the
Goes all
wetland
way up to
border is
here.
over here.
And it goes all the way up to this point, and that's why I flagged these as well, because it does come up to this. It comes up here, and
Yes.
there's plantings back here behind these to limit theirs, but there's nothing over here to limit the backyard usage over here.
I mean, and I understand too, it's not like individual homeowners which would be almost impossible to control, at least the association should, but
This is the closest point.
it'd be nice just to have, something, maybe not as intense, but you're saying some kind of buffer to kind of delineate, so people don't.
Yeah.
Isn't this all wooded right now?
It is, except it's the stockpiles.
No, I know.
Well, these
but-
aren't the stockpiles
Stockpiles are
are
up here.
here,
Right.
the stockpiles are here.
Right, along the road.
In
So
here,
all
there
that
is a
would be
stockpile.
taken away.
But when all that's gone, I
Why should-
still think from,
Just cough, that's all.
I still think, yeah, this is all forested.
Yes.
Yes.
Most of it
And-
is.
Yeah. And so what, to add to that?
What I'm saying is, since I already flagged these to be
Yeah.
touching the 50, they've already said in their plans that they're planning on limiting any backyard usage within 50 feet of the wetlands. Well, that goes all the way back to the wetlands, and that would be full backyard use within 50.
What,
And
what,
then the grass can have herbicide or anything else, and you're not supposed to be cutting within that distance either.
Well, I
So,
don't think there should be.
I'm thinking there should be something else in here.
Definitely instead of lawn, we certainly
Yeah.
don't want to approach.
Right.
Maybe something.
I'm not convinced there should be any grass in it.
Right, and that's why I'm saying it, this will all be grass, because if the wood line is not gonna come right up to the half of the house, and they're gonna be clearing this to build, and if this touches the 50.
Suggestion?
can we look at that, let me get the numbers on those two units.
The last two.
109 and 110.
Yeah, 109 and 110.
109 and 110.
Mhm.
We can take a look at those and see where the tree line is. If the tree line is basically at the toe of this constructed slope, yeah, we could put a few trees in there. That's not a problem. Now, the main design concept for the landscape architect, what she attempted to do was to maintain about a 20 to 25-foot rear yard area off the back of the building.
Not if it's
And
within 50.
Beyond that, she put in the tree plantings. So we can look at that to see what would be maintained off the back of these two units and see if additional plantings need to be
I
added.
mean, maybe it won't be able to be as intense as what you see here, but even if it's a single layer, just
Yeah,
something.
it could be a single layer
I
of
think that's what Ashley's
trees
saying. I don't
that
know
would
what
connect,
but something more than just nothing.
that would connect this planting area to
Right,
this
right.
planting area
Yeah,
over here.
right, make it
Yeah, we can take a
continuous.
look at that.
You know, and I understand, you can't really move,
What were those numbers again?
109 and 110.
because I mean, my next session was move the dwellings closer, but I understand there's planning and
It's already
zoning
a
issues for
duplex.
parking, you can't, they're as
It's
close
a-
as they can be.
And this
It's a
is a
duplex
duplex.
area.
Right, right. So you
But
can't
this
really-
one actually could entertain a side yard. This one,
Won't happen.
As shown, this is going to most likely be grass because it's actually outside the 100-foot.
yeah.
They do have access to a grassy area, I mean, it's just the way these kind of developments are, they're not, yeah.
Yes, they're not,
Designed for big
Right,
lawns.
right,
Yes.
right. I mean,
And they're not gonna
Frank
attract
can
the people
probably
that wanna
attest
sit
that,
on a
right? I'm
lawn
sure
there.
there's varying,
My backyard right on top of
right,
it.
right, I'll bet you don't, but I'll bet you there's some other, dwellings that have maybe a little grass, little side yards, right? I mean, it all depends where you,
Yeah,
right?
I don't have any grass behind my house.
Okay,
It's
so-
all trees and pine needles.
Do you have any tiny yard? No.
No, I have a little bit on the side, but, I wouldn't, I don't have a need for a yard, I mean, I'm not gonna put a swing set up, I can't, so,
Zip line.
I have
One of those
a
lower
little,
bench swings?
I have a little patio with a patio table on it and
Zip
chairs.
line would go there.
And a barbecue.
Yeah. And I think they have. that's
And
what-
they have that already built into the house, right?
Yeah, they do.
So, which is good, so then,
Dave, do you foresee these plantings, some of these plantings getting so big that they may have to be cut at some point? Or do you think the landscape architect is using shrubs that, I mean,
The
After
tree, if it
10, 15
overhangs, and it's conceivable far enough down the road that.
Well, can I answer that from
Oh,
our
sure.
experience? 'Cause because when our development was built, and I don't know which commission in town did it, insisted on putting pine trees everywhere and also ash. Well, the ash have all died. And the pine trees have grown out of control. So we've actually had the professor from UConn and two companies with arborists come out, and we spend a lot of money, not only eliminating trees, not in the wetlands, but taking some trees out, but also doing extensive trimming, because 14 years later, these trees have gotten big, and they're encroaching on decks, they're hitting the houses, you know, all these things that were put in with all goodwill by one of the commissions here now have to be controlled. So I'm sure 14, 15 years from now, things are gonna have to be done. No matter what you put in, something's gonna have to be done.
Conversely, in areas, and I can't point to one right now on the site, where native vegetation, existing
That's exactly right.
vegetation is close to a proposed building, and we have a 20-foot rear yard area, those, and there's some sizable oaks out there, are gonna have leaves and
Actually,
branches that are gonna.
that's what I have right behind my house. Mine were not planted, mine are native.
It's-
And they're huge now, and the branches have encroached onto the little patio area we have.
Yes.
And all that stuff, I mean, I trimmed some of it, but some of it.
No, it's a maintenance issue that.
Don't arrest me now.
Okay, you just broadcast that.
Your association that will come out. They tried to stand in the way so they couldn't see the slide.
I watch what you say.
I know.
Wear
But I
a
mean,
mask.
I mean, it's gonna happen, you
Yeah.
know. That's why I think the big thing for me with all of this is, as best we can, having these signs behind the units, all the units as far as I'm concerned, where there's wetlands. So there's some type of demarcation that they know, hey, you can't do this. I mean, the property that we have has wetlands, but we're not encroaching on the way that they were laid out. None of the houses are encroaching on the wetlands, as far as I know.
One of the problems with the big trees, the pre-existing trees, is if you build too close to them, then eventually the homeowner's gonna say, oh, this presents a danger, even if it's a perfectly healthy tree. Oh, this scares me, a big storm is gonna fall on my house, you know, it's gonna kill me in my sleep. And we've been asked many a times to cut down beautiful, healthy trees because they were too close to people's homes. So in this case, I mean, either they're gonna be removed as part of the plan, or we need to just keep the houses a safe enough distance away from them.
Reasonable.
Yeah, reasonable.
about
Yeah,
it.
we're going through that right now,
Yeah.
because the trees have grown 14 years later.
Right.
And there are people there that are concerned, and, you know, that's why we had the arborists come out. But when you read articles on trees, you know, a lot of it depends on the health of the roots, and
Sure.
and the tree may be healthy, but still, nothing can, there's no way you can guarantee a tree isn't gonna.
Well, we had that hurricane come through here, I lost 3 giant oaks in my backyard, they
There
all
you go.
went away from my house, but they were all healthy. So I know what you're saying, if it's tilting towards your house, and you get, you know, I mean, that's a problem we all would have, but I was surprised how those 3 oaks went down, they were totally healthy.
But they will be cut eventually. There's no way you're gonna.
But it's better selectively to do it as
You're gonna
needed
have to
than-
do some
than
pruning
just clear cutting,
over
saying, oh, we're
time.
gonna cut everything
Sure.
50 feet behind, you know, it just.
Well, that's
not
that's
good
why
either.
it's, because people change, you know, they may go through 2 or 3 different associations management firms managing this, or however, over 15, 20, 30 years. That's why it's so important that everything be marked, and in the documents, however, that it's clear that these are wetlands and they can't do it.
Yeah,
That's
you
my
can
guess.
refer to the markers, and when you're considering removal of, you know, any part of a tree that's inside that zone,
Right.
you have to be aware of the fact that it's a
And our
wetland.
special conditions need to carry over, like Frank said, if you have, every association or manager group that comes in, they can't just do their own thing,
And,
they
you
have
know,
to follow the.
even though we're putting all these restrictions and nice words about not using pesticides, it's still people doing it. Somebody down the road is gonna have to make sure they read the documents and not be ignorant of it and follow through. And there's no way we can guarantee, none of us in this room can guarantee that.
The North Farms development off of 139. I hike in North Farms all the time, and the landscapers who are doing the development take all the cuttings, they go into the North Farms Park, and they dump it on that right-of-way, hillside right-of-way where the gas lines go over the Valley Road from, the center. And all of that is getting washed right down into the farm river. And it's not an issue that's easy to enforce. So, yeah. So these are some of our concerns.
All right.
That's what I have to present this evening. If you have any questions about anything I presented during our sessions, if you have any
Will it be fish in that pond, in that deep water pond?
Mother Nature
Eventually, yes.
creates a vacuum, eventually, yes,
There
there will
will
be
be.
some fishing.
Fish and frogs and turtles.
I know the
Oh, yeah,
frogs and
frogs
turtles.
and turtles will
Yeah.
be, in fact,
Okay.
one of the things that I do as an adjunct to the construction of the mitigation compensation areas is find some nice flat rocks and set them at the edge of the shallow marsh areas so that they can climb out of the water and sit on sunburn. So it's a little design component that goes into, it's not put in, I don't put them in the plan, in the narrative.
It's
but
your
it's
little
done
touches
during
that you do.
construction.
I got you. No, that's great.
So it is
Thank you, that's nice.
something that I always want to incorporate into the design, the construction of the design.
That's good, thank you, Dave. So Carrie, before, I'm sure the agency members today have some concerns and things, is there anything else that, did you want to talk about, like, or should we wait till we're done about how the closing of the public hearing and when would be the next meeting and what we would have to do? Is now the time where you want to let everyone go?
Maybe, I would think maybe continue to talk about,
Or did you want to let Mrs. Denise talk, or she wanted to talk?
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's important to have her talk.
I will, that's right, we do have a member from the public, I don't want to exclude. If,
Do you want to speak?
we just want, if anyone in the public would like to talk, Mrs. Denise, you can come up, and sure, now's your chance, yeah.
My name, excuse me, my name is Susan Domisi. I'm an adjoining property owner on the east side. And Mr. Ott has assured me that the changes that we observed in the trolley road that goes across the base of our property, which is now pretty badly flooded, that he mentioned last week that the new drainage pipe put, and that they're going to do the swale, will restore the wetland drainage to what it was before this construction. And I'm assured, but I just wanted it to be in the public record that that's going to be done.
It's on the plan, so the good news is,
Yeah.
so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we sure, I mean, we know it's on the plan, but are we sure that that is going to resolve that issue up there?
So, I don't know if you remember at the last meeting, because of the changes that have happened over the past 10 or 12 years or more, I went out in dry weather and looked at this, and then I went out again in wet weather. In dry weather, I can see you can tell where the drainage way used to leave her land and come onto ours. And some fill has been placed and blocked that. It's very obvious when you go out there. So what I did, because the topography's changed, so the mapping, I can't use the mapping, I think I talked about this last time. I took the location of the pipe from the previous application 12 years ago and transferred it to my drawings. So I put it in the same spot where the natural drainage way used to be. And when I stand out in the field, it makes sense to me. So I believe it will work.
Has the elevation of the excavated area where the development is going to be, I mean, that's been raised in the process. Has that been raised at all above where the standing water was?
Oh yeah, I was out there last Sunday, I think it was, after it had rained.
Yeah.
I think it was last week, and it rained like all one day and then all through the night, and then the next day. I went out the next day when it was raining intermittently and stood there and looked at it. I was explaining earlier the water. It's definitely been, the fill is higher than the wetland, and it blocks it, and the wetland had 2 plus maybe close to 3 feet of standing water in it.
So what I was getting at here was that just remove, you said there was also a bit of a berm placed there. Just by eliminating the berm doesn't solve the problem at all, because the land then coming onto the development is now higher than what it was before.
Right.
So this drainage pipe, what size pipe are you talking about?
24 inch.
Okay, significant.
That should be able to handle that, like,
Yeah.
that standing water and just make it like, remove that.
Well, yes, the previous application had a very similar pipe. To carry this water through the development, it was an 18-inch pipe. When I did the computations, it calls for a 24-inch
Right.
pipe, so
Oh,
I
good, so 24
proposed
is
a 24.
better, so.
So what's important then is that the catch basin, the beginning of this pipe is strategically located. So
Correct.
it really captures.
Correct, that's why I went out there in dry weather,
Yeah.
so I could see where the lowest point in the wetland was.
And that's where the mouth of the pipe is? Too.
Yes.
So that you should pretty much catch everything, okay.
Yep.
I think Jared's point is to make sure that it's not too high, you know, it's low enough where we'll do that, in your estimation.
Yeah, what-
It will catch everything.
Well, we have to actually set the elevation in the field. What we don't want to do, we don't want to put that pipe below the wetland surface
No, we don't want to take.
today, because we don't want to drain the wetland.
Right, you just.
That pipe is to take storm flows.
Right.
When the wetland stages up, when it ponds up, that water should be able to come out like it used to a long time
But
ago.
not drain the wet, right, that's, I guess, what I was getting
Right.
to, right? You don't want it too low either, because then it'll drain
Right.
everything
Right.
all the time.
But the one spot on the actual old trolley trail, which is accumulating now 18 inches of water easily after rain, where it just stands there.
Right.
That was, of course, never like that in the past. And it's going to be somewhere in there, I assume, that you're going to be trying to catch the water, right?
I think so. I'm not sure if we're talking about the same location, but
Well, it's just
Yeah.
a short way in.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just before the berm and
Right.
the cleared area, there's a swath about, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 feet wide by
Yeah.
20 or so feet long along the trail, where it's just deep standing water.
Right.
And the edges of it are, it's like dug out there. And I'm
Right.
wondering, maybe that should not only get drained, but maybe filled.
I'm not, I'd have to look at that. in
I
the
would be
field,
happy
yeah.
to go out there
Yeah.
and look at that with you and point out exactly what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. But there is a pool there about 12 by 20 feet. There's a
Yeah.
pool of standing water that never was there, and it's right on the
Right. Right.
railroad bed.
Right. So maybe I wasn't clear enough, but the previous mapping from 12 or more years ago showed a swale, a drainage way coming from the east through our property down to the tributary to Munger Brook. That previous application showed a pipe just like this one and picked up that swale. They put it right in the swale to carry the water through their proposed development. Because all that topography's changed, I can't see that on a map today. So I went out in the field, I took the previous application's pipe inlet location, transferred it accurately to my drawings, put it right where they had it, knowing that they had put it where the natural drainageway was. Then I went out in the field in dry weather, and it makes sense to me where I put it. So I know that I have it at the right horizontal location. In the field, we'll have to play with its elevation.
Okay, but I'm still fairly certain that in the spot that I'm talking about, when you look at the sides of to the side of the standing water, there's very straight cut-out banks.
Yep.
And that was excavated at the beginning of this project. That was excavated, and that's why there's a deep standing water there. That land there, if you look at the top of these cuts,
Yeah.
that would be the original location, elevation of the wetlands, not
Yeah.
this 2-foot trench that has been dug there.
Right.
I think that trench needs, I still think you need to do the drainage as you're planning, but I think that trench has to go.
I'd have to look at it. I didn't see that.
I mean, I
don't
know
recall
that wasn't
yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you're right. Yeah. Well, we'll have to look at that in the field.
Yeah, and it's not a big fix.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look at that.
So the elevations that you have on there are subject to change based on what you find in the field?
Just the elevation of the inlet, Karen.
Okay,
That's not unusual.
okay.
Yeah.
Just
The goal-
wanted to clarify. And then, so
Yeah.
it's at an 18-inch at the inlet?
No, it's a 24 inch.
Oh, okay. Did I read that?
Well, it was 18 on the old plan.
Well, it says 18 here on this plan.
Yeah, it's,
Say 18-inch metal culvert end.
yeah, it's intended to be a 24 inch.
This is
It
wrong.
was an 18 inch on the previously approved
That's what it said,
application.
Carrie made a good point, it does say that now, but maybe just provide
It's-
that, you know.
It's gonna be a 20, for the record, it's in the drainage report, it's a 24 inch pipe. It's
Because
gonna be
the
a
drawings you
24
just gave us this weekend, it shows 18.
I made a mistake.
You know, it's like,
But yeah, it's definitely, something's needed to resolve that, but you're right, we probably better look at it, your point is, well taken. I like the 24 inch pipe better, it's bigger, more.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay. Ideally, when they're all done and everything's working, the trolley road up to their property line should be dry again. With, on the south side is where the wetland drain.
If everything is working properly, you're absolutely right, that's what we hope to accomplish, you know.
And then on the north side of the trolley trail, it goes the other direction, is that correct?
No, previously, years ago, the draining wetland was on the south side of the trolley road.
That's where we went, right?
But doesn't all this wetlands up here drain down? I thought you.
There's a,
It's kind of a little peak right here, so.
I thought we had said earlier that the wetlands on this side actually drain that way.
they do. So there's a split. If you look at the old topography from 2006, there's a split somewhere in here, and that's always difficult to see on the drawings at this mapping scale. But the previous topography indicates a split in the field, you can see it. There's a split where, I'm just gonna pick a point.
Yeah.
At my finger, everything this side goes this way and turns and goes into this wetland and back to the water course to follow the road.
So you're saying then
That
that's
way.
crossing the trail?
No,
It's on
the
this
trail is
side
like
of
in
the
the middle
trail.
of it.
It's on
So
the north side
north of the trail
There's a-
goes one way.
There's a
south
topographic
goes the
divide,
other.
the natural topographic divide, not unusual, it's very minor, it could just be.
Just enough to tilt it
Just
in that
enough
direction.
where somewhat, which is why we have to be careful with the elevation of this pipe.
Right.
So,
But I believe when the trolley trail was here, some of this came this way, but this has been raised so much.
Well, when the
that-
trolley trail went through, I mean, this is all wet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And,
and it wasn't raised
and on
bed,
the
so.
other side, it's really wet too.
Yeah.
yeah.
now it is.
No, it wasn't that, it was always, and the trolley trail, the trolley bed
No,
was.
right between it.
Right, it was,
Yeah.
it was slight,
Right.
Yeah.
maybe they found that natural
Makes sense.
divide that you're
Yeah.
talking about and said.
Yeah,
that-
nice
that's
or
what-
in that area,
and
that's
put it
the
there.
pick probably.
Or they created it, who knows?
True.
They took it at one time, you know,
Yeah.
sometime ago, so.
Well, the train ran from 1911 to 1930.
So they could have created it a long time ago when they constructed it. Who knows, but clearly there's a divide from the 2006 mapping, there's a divide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. So, at this point, maybe just turn it over to the agency members. If you want to just one by one go through your concerns or anything.
Sure.
Go ahead.
We'll start down the line, or?
We'll start with Frank Morgan.
I think I've already expressed all my
Okay.
concerns, so I don't.
You're
think
next.
there's-
Okay.
Can you just briefly reiterate what we're?
Pesticides.
Well, I don't remember them all, but the pesticides, the signs, um, the land, the amount of wetlands being restored, which was the huge one as far as I was concerned, and that was addressed weeks or months ago. I believe everything I've asked has been addressed. You know, I'd like to see a sign behind every unit. I think that's the word's wetlands, obviously,
Which is most.
be a most, so, but I don't have any concerns that I remember. I think they've all been addressed.
That's right, you can come back at any time, I just want to go down the line and make it easier for the applicant, so Ashley, go ahead.
Okay, so, whenever we get new applications, I can't even recall a time where we've ever approved anything within 50 feet of an upland for an individual. Maybe if they've come back to us after having a development and wanted to put up a shed or a pool or something like that, but not for a new application. So, I flagged, and I'll read off the numbers, 6, 7, 8, and 9 on page 8 of 68. These are all within 50, and I want to see 6, 7, 8 we removed completely and the road redesigned, so it's outside of the 50. 9 as well. And then I also flagged ones that are more than a third into the 100-foot, which means their backyard has to be limited. And that would be 4, 10, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21. Those are all.
Can you?
Can you say
Sorry.
again?
Yes, sorry.
4,
So,
10.
I'll go back again. So 6, 7, 8, and 9, I want removed completely. The road redesigned outside of the 50. And then numbers 4, 10, 13, 15, 17, 19, and 21 are all 50% or more within the 100-foot upland review area. And those need extreme limitations in their backyards, because if more than 50% of the house is within 100 feet, then that means the backyard is very short. On page 9 of 68, house number 24 is within 50, and I would like it removed completely.
Which
24. Unit number 26, 12, 29, and 30 are more than 50% within the 100-foot. Especially 26. 26 is almost 100% within the 100, as well as number 30 of the duplex is 100% within the 100-foot.
so what's your
Those are
suggestion there?
concerned, they're sideways, so it would be a 50-50. They're not touching the 50, they're just outside of it. But my concern again is if they're more than 50% in the 100, that means there's very limited yard, there should be no yard whatsoever. And then on page 10 out of 68, number 58 and 71 removed completely, those are within 50. And then numbers 59, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, and 70 are all more than 50% in the 100. And with the restrictions again, no yard. On page 11 of 68, 81 and 82 are both within the 50 and need to be removed. And 89, 91, now this is the duplex that you skipped the 90. Okay, so 89 and 91 is actually a duplex. 105 are all approximately 50% within the 100. 89 and 91 is a duplex. That's the number they skipped, was the 90. But 89 and 91 is a duplex. And 105, we're still on the same page, 11 of 68. And then on page 12.
And so sorry, with those limitations?
Those are within the 100. Those are the limitations in the back.
The 89 and 90.
Yeah, 89 and 91 is the duplex.
And
They skipped
105.
90 and 105. And then on page 12 of 68, the duplex of 109 and 110, the 109 is within the 50, so the duplex, I don't know if it can be a duplex anymore. And then 107 and on this one, 110 are both within the 50%. I also had some concerns about parking areas, but I'll let those go.
So sorry, going back to 109, 110, and 107.
109, according to this, is a duplex with 110, and 109 is within the 50, and I would like it removed, but it's a duplex, so that would be tricky. And then 110 and 107 on page 12 are within the 50, or within the 100, especially the 110, that's way more than 50% of the house, 100, and needs strong restrictions behind it, which is what was already addressed with the plantings. There's no plantings shown on that area, and that one should have no backyard whatsoever. So those are mine.
So how, wait, just so, how are we defining the term yard?
Exactly.
Because I would argue, I don't have a yard, it's trees, but I do have a yard, because I can walk underneath my trees, and I can, that's still a yard. So
Right, so
how are you defining
We're
yard?
saying no grass. There can't be grass because there can't be pesticides or cutting or anything within 50, so it would have to be no grass.
But just look at grass, because the grass is invasive and will go in there. And so they're still gonna have to cut the grass, because you can't just keep it wild right behind a house.
So what do we put behind a house that's within
Well, that's why
That's all.
that's why I'm asking you.
10 feet off the back of the house, 15 feet?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
All right, excuse me.
We're going to take a 3-minute recess, and we'll be back in 3 minutes. here we are. We're back online, so we're going to resume our meeting. So, where did we leave off?
We're discussing backyardage
Right. Oh, right.
for anything within 50 or 100 feet. So like for houses that are halfway through the 100-foot upland review, so if the house is designed and the upland review is halfway through the house or more, how much of a backyard are we allowing?
Well, we're going to have to do a couple of things. I think obviously our placards, it has to be like right as close so they know.
But
we
unless
have-
there's a tree back there, where are we gonna put them, on posts?
Yeah, post.
We have to, yeah,
Okay.
we have to do that. I just don't see, it's gonna be, when you say backyard, like Frank was describing it, yours is a natural backyard, a wooded backyard, that's.
And the pine needles keep the
that's-
growth down.
But that's the,
Right.
No, those are, I have oak trees there, but the pines are what was required to be planted by the village. There were no natural pines there.
but my point is, that being you can't really have a lawn back there, we're gonna have to, if we're gonna allow some of these things, it's gonna have to remain like a wooded, like you said, what Frank is experiencing now, you go out, there's really no lawn there, you can walk out there, you can still, but it won't be an area where they'll be hopefully putting fertilizers, pesticides, they won't be treating it like an active lawn, like a landscaper would do, so.
But I don't think I don't think it'd be reasonable to say that they won't cut it, because I think they will cut.
Oh, no, I'm not
Well,
against
that's
the
what I'm
cutting
saying,
part.
how far
I'm
back?
just saying, how far do we, allow them to, it's one thing to cut invasive, like you said, grass, another thing to say, well,
I'll use an example. When we went out to the house on Notch Hill, over here, where they mowed down all the cattails and all the tall grass, and that's their wetlands, and they weren't supposed to touch any of that. And we made them regrow everything. We made them regrow everything, and so now every time I drive by, I look in that backyard to make sure they have not cut that down again.
That's where they put the one section of split rail fence.
Yes.
Yeah. That piece.
And so we limited
Still
their
do.
backyard, and we made them regrow everything wild beyond that point.
Well, what about some sort of barrier like we did at that house you're talking about? We had them put in a section of split rail fence that says you can't utilize anything beyond it. What if something were like that were 10 feet, 15 feet behind the house?
Well, that's what we're trying to decide, how far.
Well, the actual distance. You gotta leave it wide enough for a mower to get between the house and whatever barrier you put in. So you probably need a minimum 10, 12 feet.
Yeah, so I was gonna say 10 or 12 feet.
I would say even 15 to make sure if something has to come through there to,
And
tractor or something to do some maintenance or whatever, remove branches or whatever, to
Sure.
trim.
What is the width of the clearing for the sanitary sewers? Is that 20? Okay. So that's too much for this.
So you're talking about a measurement off of each unit,
Off of
not
each unit
from
that's
the
with-
wetland?
Any unit
That's within the 100. Anyone that's within the ones that I flagged that were within the 100,
Mhm.
that go at least halfway through their 100-foot house.
See, you mean anything that's more than 50% into
Yes.
the 100?
Yes,
They would have limited
backyard.
backyards. But if
It's
it
all the
only,
ones that I flagged as 50, I don't want.
if it comes up to the 50, then you would say, again,
Well, like this one has
Which
only
one?
about.
Can you just say the number?
Number 4.
Okay.
This one only has about 10, maybe 15 feet before they reach the 50. And so it would be a short backyard. And that's how it is for most of them. Like the one over here on, like 19, it's almost 100% within the 100-foot. And so that backyard is going to be even smaller. Same with 110. Same with 59, with 62, with 63, with 70. with 29, with 30, with 26. So those are the biggest ones. You've got 15, 17, 19, 13, 10, and 4 that are also in that category. That are almost completely within the 100. But I left those because they were outside of the 50. And why would we treat development any differently than we would treat an individual coming before us?
I do have a comment on that. Go on, you're done.
I'm not, if we've made our decision on the land behind 15, 10 to 12 to 15.
Well, I think we just need to come to a consensus just to give the applicant, so they understand what we're thinking, we just don't want to be vague, so we've already said we're gonna put signs, we said there's things we can do. It's just so we wanna make sure that they're aware of it and that they understand that, that could affect our decision, or might be or it might be a special condition, it probably will, as we move forward, even though we're not gonna address that tonight, the motion, but it'll have to be in the motion, whatever we decide, that's all, so.
Carrie, you had a comment?
Yes, so once you decide on the distance, can you also just indicate, are you looking for some kind of a barrier, like a split rail fence or not? Just, I'm not sure where you land on that.
Definitely want the wetlands placards. I think we're unanimous in that. So what can we do more than that without being too intrusive upon the area? I mean, that's my question. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not sure that I have an answer for that right now, but.
I mean, my feeling on that would be to actually have an artificial barrier if you're talking, if you're within the 50 foot. Within the 100 foot, if you're gonna permit a house in the 100 foot and it doesn't reach to the 50, you're gonna have placards there anyways, and I think that's sufficient. I mean, I don't think it would look very nice and be very practical to have barriers all over the place.
Well, a lot of these will have the natural vegetative buffers, which will help, that should help.
Right.
I mean, it's better than what we saw in the initial plan, to have that, so that's,
Well,
again, I mean, like I said, any other suggestions? I mean, I know you feel strongly, Ashley, that's fine. But we just want to be able to give something to, especially the ones that are in there, and we, that we're trying to just give them some direction. That we're all uncomfortable, of course. We have to be, kind of unanimous on that, how we feel about moving forward. So we're going to say, like, I guess 50 and 20 feet. I mean, for the houses that are more than that, 50%.
That are almost to the 50.
If we're not right, or almost there, right,
to the
right.
51.
Right. So the ones that,
If they're just outside of the 50.
are the placards enough, or what other, what other, is there any other things that we want to do? I'm just throwing out the question out.
Well, I'm kind of concerned about a fence, especially if it's not contiguous. We're only saying it's only certain lots, and then the lot next door doesn't qualify. But then the one down below does. You're gonna have this hopscotch of whatever. And then there's the whole maintenance
Until we do the water thing.
of that.
What about?
So I thought what was proposed for the natural vegetation that was gonna be put there.
Well, that we just saw, we just looked at.
That I
Then
thought-
the plantings need to be moved up to within,
To 50.
to the 50.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next suggestion, if you don't want to.
I'd rather have plantings than
I think you're right.
A
a
hedgerow or
fence.
something needs to be planted
Something.
behind.
I'd rather have something that spreads and that, but at least, I mean, anything can be run through, but I'm just saying, so
Right.
that's something that's permanent, that'll be there. The plantings are.
Trees, shrubs.
Are supposed to be ones that would thrive in this kind of environment, so, I like the idea of, I do like the planting, but the question is,
But for some of those that I flagged, that means that their hedgerow is gonna be right behind their
They're
house.
pretty, I know, they're pretty.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty close. It's
Mhm.
that's not gonna be, and it's gonna be impossible for the town to monitor that. It'll be, I mean, there's gotta be some practicality here too.
Well, and
There's just-
realistically, they're gonna be very close today. Imagine how close they'll be in
When
10
they grow,
years.
right.
Right.
As they grow.
Right,
And then if you're saying you can't cut them, or even if they can cut them, it's just not gonna be practical.
Right, I mean, you don't wanna get them so close that you know you're creating a problem. I mean, it's one thing 20, 30 feet, you know, but yeah, 5, 10 feet, it's just really, that's almost.
It's real close, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
10 feet's not that,
Yeah, no, it's,
it's not that far. It's probably from the flag behind you to the wall.
for slow growing vegetation,
I mean,
or lower level, it would be,
Huh?
it would-
12 feet.
Yeah, I mean, that's tight.
That's why I'm thinking, yeah, it's gotta be
You
at
know,
least
and
50
I don't,
feet.
it'd be one, the thing is, even though these are over 55, you still have grandkids and other kids that come over, and they're gonna wanna
They're not all
go.
gonna be over 55.
No, I know, most of them are though. I understood that the apartment complex was gonna be a little different, but still, it doesn't make any difference if they all were over 55. Where I live, there's a lot of grandkids running around, so, and you wanna make it a nice environment too.
Well, those are my thoughts. And we'll still have to decide on the barrier.
No, I think a natural barrier makes the most sense.
I
It
agree.
makes the most sense. I also don't necessarily buy in about taking those houses out and reroute the road, because I thought that was the way it was explained a couple meetings ago. There's two issues. One is within the 50 feet, and the other is if we're gonna allow 50 feet or not, I guess is one question. But the way the road was and the way it was gonna be built up, and explained how I interpreted that explanation a few meetings ago, I was satisfied that the buildup of the old trolley trail, et cetera, more than substantiated for leaving the road as it is without making any changes, because that was a concern that I had early on. But I thought the changes that were proposed because we are raising the elevation, I mean, that's clear, because the trolley trail is, as it is today, I mean, I'm not, don't know that the first exposure to the trolley trail was this. So,
Here's our story.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessary to change
But
the road
I-
myself.
With the reference to the trolley trail road, I mean, the impact on wetlands, other than the
It's
widening
minimal.
of the burn, it's
Minimal.
minimal or non-existent.
And they're gonna, and the thing is, they're gonna compensate, that's
Right.
what, to me, I thought we made a trade-off early on by saying, okay, for every foot I'm taking away, I'm gonna create 4 foot more. I don't remember what the numbers are, but 4 foot
Exactly,
more.
yeah.
So that's, to me, was our way of accepting that we're gonna lose some wetlands, and I know this one area here you're talking about was part of that. And so I'm okay with this and leaving the road as it is, because they're gonna make up multiple times more for the wetlands and guarantee us they're gonna do that in another spot. So we're trading off. So
And you can be okay with that, and I don't have to be.
I know, but I'm
That's
just
right.
explaining,
That's fine.
I'm just
And the reason
explaining my
why,
view.
I know, the reason why I'm concerned about 6, 7, and 8 is because it falls between two wetlands that on both sides are within 50 feet. So,
Well, I think that's another
That one
question though,
building.
but that's the other
Mhm.
question.
I only saw one building
Yeah.
that fit that.
But it's more than that, because you rattled off quite a few buildings to be taken out that
There's
are
10.
within 50 feet.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the road is one subject, within 50 feet is
number
another
8 is
subject.
within both sides.
Yeah.
It's the first house we come around the corner,
No, it's the back one.
Can you, here, go to this one.
Yeah, number 8.
Come to this map. Oh, yeah. So I know we're talking about this.
This one.
Oh, right,
It's
right,
within
right.
50 on this
Yep.
side as well as this.
So you've got two.
Is that the one where you
two-
you've scoped out the back?
Two
there?
wetlands here,
Yeah.
and
two of them.
there's not 200 feet between them.
Yeah, that's why I was pointing over here, but,
Yeah.
no, I got you now.
But are those the only two houses we're concerned about, or is there? in terms of being in the 50 feet, or are we going beyond that?
This is the 100-foot, so this house is entirely within
Number 7.
number 7.
This plan has it in the blue. See,
This is the 100-foot.
Which is the 100?
Number 7,
Steve's
the
finger
But
corner.
which way is that going?
This way.
This way?
yes.
Yeah.
Right, so it's completely within.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's
this
100.
This is the 100 right
Yeah,
here.
now 7, then it cuts through here, so
Yeah.
this is the one, 7 is the one that's,
But 8 is the one that has it on both sides.
right, because it's got exposure from that way too, right?
Well, this is the area also where you want to change the road, right?
And number 7 has it on the inside,
Okay.
Number 7 as well.
just on the inside.
Number 7 is, I think, entirely in it.
Yeah, like the 100-foot from here to here, and then this one has.
So,
From both sides.
Yes, it's entirely within the
You have
100.
the two wetlands. It's
And number
100
8 is
feet,
within the 50
100 foot.
on both sides. And number 6 is more than halfway.
But these are only 3 of the ones you're concerned
Mhm.
about, right? Or are these the only 3?
There's 10.
10.
Mhm. All right, Jerry, you're up.
you have 10 houses that you want
Yeah, here,
removed?
this is the ones that you wrote down. 6, 7, 8, 9.
These are to be requested to be removed.
These are within the 50. 6, 7, 8, 9, 24. Go on, Ken.
58.
58.
71.
71.
and,
81, 82. And then 109.
That was the duplex.
The
one.
duplex
Okay,
one.
okay, okay.
Okay.
Now, those high-numbered ones, those are up in the area of cul-de-sacs that have
Yes.
already been completely excavated, is that correct?
81 is the one
Yeah.
attached to the walking trail. 82 has the landfill over here, but it's also the wetlands that comes right up to it.
Right, but I mean, this is the area when you come in Fowler Road and you go past.
That's closer to the 110,
Yeah,
109.
but what I'm saying is you're coming past the trolley road, which is called Road A, you go past that, and you can go to a cul-de-sac to the west, and then there's another one.
There was the small one here.
Yeah, and then there's another one going
Mhm.
to the east, I believe.
Yeah,
See,
this is
those-
around the small.
Those areas are completely excavated, they were excavated, filled, mined, whatever you want to call it, and I suppose that that was done with the permission of the previous application, or they never would have been able to work.
No, we had problems with that.
Well, but ultimately, it was approved.
Not the stockpiling nor.
No, I'm not talking about the stockpiling, I'm talking about what was flattened out and.
Oh, the site work?
The site work, what was flat, the site work was prepared.
I'm trying to remember how much they started and did before they, scrapped the whole thing, before we got this next application. That's what I'd like, I know we did the
But-
sidewalks for all that.
But all of that is totally disturbed already, and personally, I don't see a major problem with putting houses, even if they're close to the wetland in that area that's already been excavated.
You're saying that the excavation could have created more wetlands? There's
Well,
wetlands there, but.
it didn't
There's
create
definitely
more
wetlands
They
there.
filled
I
in
mean,
the
Well, I'm
wetlands.
asking.
They
Yeah.
have the silt fences up,
Right,
they've
right.
had it up throughout the entire construction.
They raised this whole area up, so it's all been
It's
filled.
been altered, no, I understand.
It's all been altered. But
the thing is that that area is completely disturbed already, completely excavated, and I can't see how you can just, I personally don't see any major impact in putting those houses in, so long as they're not going into the wetland and you observe certain rules that we're going to determine tonight as far as how much encroachment we're going to allow into the 100 and into the 50. Well, I'm on a roll, so let me just keep going here. You know, Ashley was 100% correct in saying that in all the time she's seen applications, we've never approved anybody to build within the 100-foot upland review other than a pool, a patio,
I would say at
a
this
shed.
scale, definitely not at this scale, that's for sure.
Right,
Might have
but
been
even
individual houses where we had unique situations, but you're right.
with
not-
unique situations, we
50.
might, yeah. But I don't think we've ever approved something in the 50. However, there's one big difference. In all the years that I've been on the commission, I don't think that I've ever entertained a project that was serviced by sanitary sewers. Can you think of one recent?
I can think of ones that weren't, that we had issues with.
That we had
Shots
issues,
property,
sure.
initial Shots one, that was horrendous.
The
Sure,
one on
but-
Tucket was gonna.
Right.
But here, I mean, on the Schatz property, every lot had a septic
Yeah.
system. On this property, there's no septic systems.
And city water, which.
And city
We've
water.
never had an application like
Right.
that other than this
So,
site.
for those two reasons, I feel that the impact on the wetlands is greatly reduced. So the stringent activities that, or the stringent restrictions that we may have put on so many homeowners and individual lots with septic systems, I don't think really applies to this project.
I think the sheer number and volume and
Well-
of that, and if you do this now, anyone who would look at this and say, well, you gave the exception to this development, why can't I build within 50 feet if I'm attached to a septic system?
I
or
don't,
sewer?
first of all,
Instead of septic.
I don't think that's necessarily true, and secondly, in the town of North Branford, I don't think there's very many sites left where you could actually do a project of this scale.
I'm
Now,
not
I,
talking about
And
project,
connect
I'm
to
talking about
sewers,
individuals.
and connect to
and
sewers.
connect to sewers.
I'm just talking about individual.
I don't,
Project is-
you know, there's a lot of rules with this project. I mean, here, all these people on Frederick Street and stuff are bound by zoning regulations, which are probably R40 is my guess. I'm not 100% sure.
Yes.
But this swath of land where you managed to purchase two houses to make a small boulevard entrance into the development, that's going to, now that it's part of the other land, that's going to fall now under your zoning of, is it I2, I3, what?
No,
Floating zone?
ARHD.
ARHD. So these are now under that.
Age-restricted housing district.
Okay.
So it's like,
But it's
if
only
you think
that
of like a
section that's
layered cake,
age-restrictive housing district.
so there's still residential on the like initial layer, but the floating zone is the age-restricted housing district just for those first two parcels.
Okay.
I'm sorry, that's not true.
No, it's
It
this whole
it extends
section.
back, I think it's just under the 15-acre maximum.
Right, it's only this part, it's not the part past the crossover on the trolley.
But what I'm saying is that this entrance is not subjected to the same zoning regulations as the adjacent properties because it's now part of this development. So things change, and what happens for one isn't necessarily going to mean that that has to be done for everybody. But, I mean, as everybody knows, I'm intimately knowledgeable of this property my entire life. And this property has been just crying for development for a long, long time. And I'm not, I mean, I'm a tree hugger, all right? I'm a tree hugger. I get mad when, and you know, when I see these signs from the tree ward, we're cutting down this, cutting down that. But this piece of property has been so abused for the last 60 years that I know of. And before Cherry Hill got involved with this, it was a dump. There was cars in there, refrigerators, wash machines, I mean, tires, everything you could possibly think of. The access was curtailed somewhat in recent years when they closed off the dump and stuff, so it's harder to get in there for people to do things, but they will find a way, and if something doesn't happen in there, it's just going to remain, in my opinion, a scar on the town. That being said, I don't think that you should be building within the 50 foot. And as far as the 100 foot, it's the 100 foot upland review. We all know that that doesn't mean the 100 foot restriction, but I don't think we ever, for anybody, would have allowed a house to be built in the 100 foot upland review 100% of the house. We would let infringements for a homeowner with a septic system. We might allow them to put the back portion in with the deck and the swimming pool and stuff, but we would never have allowed an entire house in the 100 foot upland review. So I'm trying to come to terms with what I see as the need to develop this property and the need to protect the wetlands, and I'm conflicted with what regulations should we actually be following. So, I mean, based on what I came up with, what I thought about, I don't feel anything should be built at all in the 50 foot, within the 50 foot. As far as the 100 foot, I have a hard time with anything over 50, 60% of the structure going in. I think if it goes any more than 50%, I think you need to really do something with vegetation to curtail any further encroachment. But I really don't think that this development necessarily needs to go beyond the 50% of any structure into the 100 foot. And I do think that you can make some exceptions to that in areas that were pre-approved, previously excavated. I just don't have a problem with that at all. I looked at some lots. I came up with some of the same ones that Ashley had mentioned, and I felt that a couple of them could have been tweaked and not necessarily removed. There were a few that I thought ought to just come out of there because they were completely in. I came up, I thought 6 could be tweaked somehow to get a little bit of it out of the 100 foot review. And I'm not going back at the map, I'm just looking at some notes that I took, but 6 could possibly be tweaked. 7, 8, and 9 should probably be removed. I think 13, I have a real problem with 13 because one, the majority of it is in the 100 foot upland review, but number 2, when I had asked you to make access for the trolley trail, now I'm changing from wetlands to conservation, you had done that on those 2 houses going off to the east, I believe. Is that right? But you didn't take any of that into consideration as far as access to the western part of the trolley trail that goes right out to Notch Hill Road. And house number 13 is right in that, plus 3/4 of it is within the 100 foot upland review. So that one to me is very important, number 13. Either slide it over to the other one and make it a smaller duplex, figure something out. you know, get that opened up so that you have a straight swath into the trolley bed beyond that out to Notch Hill Road. I think that's ultimately important for your community, for the public, just to stray a little bit. I mean, I think open land, trails, you know, open space, trails, outdoor recreation, I think that is so necessary for the future of any town or community, because without that, the people, the existing residents of the town are gonna get old, they're gonna die off, and young people aren't gonna wanna come here because we have nothing to offer as far as bike paths. Now, I'm not saying bike paths and walking trails are all gonna get done right away, but once that trail access is broken and you lose access to the Notch Hill Brook trails from the North Branford Land Trust and I forget the name of the other trails farther down in Guilford, from the Guilford Land Trust. Once you lose access to all that stuff, it's lost forever. And by keeping that open, though there's problems as far as getting to the center of town on that trail now, those things might be solved 10, 15, 20 years down the road, maybe when there's money, maybe when, you know, the town has a windfall of some sort. But if that is not preserved today, then there's no chance of doing anything tomorrow. Again, I said number 81, we addressed that right in the beginning. That was maybe tweaking that somehow, that the trail maintains its original integrity. Yeah, I really don't see any problem with the stuff in the area that's already been excavated. I mean, I come down to 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I didn't finish. I got stuck on 13. Sorry about that. 19 was problematic just because it was almost entirely. Yeah, but I mean, I think that could possibly be. Are they in the 50? They're not in the 50.
No, this one just
Yeah.
about touches it.
So-
These two are almost entirely in the 100.
I mean, David Lord's plan for, you know, separating, making barriers with plants and restoration of wetlands for what's been taken, I think it's absolutely fabulous. And I think that property will look so much better when you're done with it than it does now. And I don't think the impact will be terrible. The main flows of the wetlands as they exist today will all be maintained. And I think that's the important stuff. Some of it drains under the Road A and it goes around and eventually winds up into Munger Brook. It'll continue to work as well as it is today, is my feeling. I left off at 19, 24 and 26, they're like 100% in the wetlands. Not in the wetlands, I'm sorry, in the 100-foot upland review. Now, just out of principle, I don't think that should be allowed, but I was thinking also, maybe, do you think one tennis court is enough to serve this community? Just a question I'm throwing out there, I guess I shouldn't expect an answer, but you know, as far as the recreation, the tennis court going right down to the wetlands, I got no problem with that. There's no real, other than playing tennis, there's no real human activity. The tennis courts are going to drain, it's going to flow, sheet flow into the wetlands. The same thing with the swimming pool. Even if the swimming pool were to be breached and all the water went into the wetlands, it's not going to hurt anything. So I just didn't have a problem with any of that, even though it went well into the 50s, into the 50-foot. But I thought that maybe where number 24 and 26 were, maybe you could find some other use for that little piece of property there. Or maybe you could convince us, I don't think you could convince me that if out of principle, it's 100%, nearly 100% in the 100-foot upland review. I just don't think that that should be permitted.
And 24 is in 50.
And 24 is in the 50 as well. Okay, you studied this much better than I did. But then I had a problem with number 29 and 30 at the steep berm. First of all, both of those homes are 100% or,
30 is part of the duplex.
well, that's easily solved by making that duplex into a single, but, and removing the half. But the half of that duplex and the unit number, let's see,
29 is the house.
that's 29. I think they should come out. I think one, they're too close to the wetlands. Anything that flows out of their backyards is going right down that steep embankment. I don't know how safe it is to live that close to that steep embankment, but that's not so. Those two also, out of principle, they're almost entirely in the 100-foot upland review, and so I have a problem with those. So the ones that, I guess I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, I feel 9 of them want to come out. Number 6, house number 6, am I right? I think it can be tweaked. I think you can tweak it somehow or other to not go more than 50%, 60% into the upland review. You know which one I'm talking about. And
So those that you are suggesting to look at removing, just so I can make sure that I
to
have them.
remove for sure,
7, 8, 9,
7, 8, 9 for wetland reasons,
24,
19, 24, and 26,
and 29 and 30?
29 and 30.
Okay.
I'd like you to somehow tweak 81. I think you could tweak 6, and either tweak or remove, figure out some way to keep the continuity of the trolley bed, a nice swath like you did up at the other end, through house number 13, and continue it down the road. I mean, there will be a zigzag on that because in order to follow the trolley bed, one will have to follow on Road A, the sidewalk. You're going to have to cross Road A, which map am I supposed to be on?
I think sheet 9.
Sheet 9. Bear with me a sec. Yes, thank you. When you're coming down Road A, you'll be following the sidewalks. If you did a straight thing, you'd be cutting off the northwest corner of that intersection with Road B. But if you follow the sidewalks down to and around the corner at that intersection, crossed from the north side of Road B to the south side of Road B, and follow the sidewalk just a very short distance, you're back on the trolley trail. Because the trolley trail, you want to take a look at this, or you know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, I'm just, you probably think, why is this guy so damn obsessed with this friggin' trolley trail? I mean, there's a lot of history there, all right? This train ran It was originally the Shoreline Electric Railroad, and that part ran from most of the shoreline, at least Madison, from Madison to East Haven. That was run by the Shoreline Railroad from 1911, no, from 19, what did I say?
Yes, 1911 to
Yeah,
1930.
no, yeah, but actually by the shoreline, it was only from 1911 to 1919. And it seems like that was the death of that company. It stopped running from 1919 till 1923. So this is the 100-year anniversary right now for the death of the Shoreline Electric Railroad. The New Haven Shoreline Railroad, which still exists today, took over that trolley trail and ran it from 1923 to 1930. And then due to the development of the automobile and towns spreading much further from the train station, it was no longer advantageous to take the trolley because then you had to walk a long distance into the town, and Uber wasn't available yet. All right. So that was the end of, it's a history there, and this section of the trolley trail is the longest contiguous section remaining. The rest of it is all broken up into private properties and stuff. Not that this isn't private property as well, but this could actually flow from 1599 Foxen Road, which is the old Edward Wall ball field, the old community center, and the old town hall. It could flow from there through your property all the way down to Westlake Avenue. It's probably in excess of 2 miles, and it picks up miles and miles of other trail systems. Not to mention the ones that you're working with the land trust now to develop, and that's a whole other issue, and that's between you and them. But I think it's real important to keep this open, at least some sort of straight right away through there. So it's up to you to figure out how to do that. And with these few changes I'm suggesting, I basically am on board with everything else. Did I forget anything? No. All right. But I really like the project.
Good.
All set here?
I'm done, thank you.
So, okay. Unfortunately, I didn't get my copy over the weekend. I don't know what happened. Must have got to a neighbor or somebody. Never got to 43 Glenwood Road. So I apologize. But so if you have an extra copy, I would love to get one before the next meeting. I don't want to take the original, but
I'll give you this, but
are you sure? I just, because I want to go over, like I took notes and everything, so I kind of brought myself up to speed, but I would like to sit down and look at it, if possible.
I'll give you, do we have your address wrong?
I don't know. I was home all day Saturday and Friday night, so.
I got an email confirmation that it was received by you.
Came in a
Wow.
FedEx package.
Believe me, my wife orders a lot of stuff. We get a lot of stuff, and I didn't get. I would
I got
remember.
one Friday.
But anyway, it's okay. You know what happens. It's not.
Maybe it was one of those porch pirate things.
Yeah, I thought it was a check.
They're not getting anything really good for Amazon, but you're right. I was going to say maybe I should yet. It happens. I don't know what happened. Maybe one of my neighbors will come to me tomorrow and say, "Steve, this is they delivered to me." But anyway, so. If I could get it, if you do have an extra copy, or send me out one. Again, I don't want to mess you up, but because I do want to look at it. So, I'll keep my comments brief because our 3 agency members.
Because I was long.
No, that's not it. No, again, I appreciate our three agency members, they all had some very good input, everything, and I, you know, they covered a lot of issues that, you know, looking at it today, I would have, you know, be concerned with also, so I'm not gonna rehash all that. But I just wanted to say, you know, I mean, again, I know a lot of work, a lot of thought went to this project, and I do appreciate that. And again, David Lord did a great job with the plantings, you know, all everything to do with the wetlands and the restoration area. So, I mean, it's just a big project, and, you know, we just hope he takes some of the things that we say, and, you know, again, I certainly feel like with some of the other agency members, like Jerry stated probably best, that, you know, I remember walking this 35 years ago with my father-in-law. I don't go back as far, and it was a mess, and it was just filthy dirty, and I just said, man, what a waste of a nice property. So coming to this site now, I agree with Jerry. I think there are some issues, there are things, but it would be advantageous to have this developed. In the end result will probably look, well, I know it'll look much better than it, you know, currently has ever had that I remember. And again, Jerry can attest that, because he's, you know, gone even farther back than me. So at this point, like I said, I just would want to turn over to Carrie just to give us some guidelines. We have to close the public hearing tonight. So what are our next steps in going to the future, just to lay it out for everyone so we know what to.
So there is a little bit of time left with that could be extended by the applicant, but given the time of year, I don't think it's realistic for us to have another special meeting between now and the end of next week. So therefore, as you said, we would have to close the public hearing this evening, and then our next meeting is January 22nd. So we would need, I think, just a 2-day extension from the applicant to get us to that point. And then we would have a meeting, the public hearing would be closed at that point, but the commission would have 35 days to make a decision from today.
But we still, that
With the
includes
2-day
the
With the
2-day
2-day
extension.
extension.
We really have 37 days, what we would need
Right.
to get to that next meeting.
And then there's a little bit of additional time, maybe, I'd have to look at the exact number, it might be like 5 days, where we could have, if the commission needed additional time,
Yeah, right.
where we could have
Right.
another special meeting if you needed more time to make the decision.
Well, yeah, because haven't seen Kirk's responses,
Well,
any of the
that-
responses, and.
That's a good point. I want to know, first of all, do we have everything that we need? Because that's important also.
So we have everything
Okay.
that we need, as far as I know.
Right, okay.
And I know that Kurt had made some specific comments to Mike,
Which we need to
that,
hear.
you know,
He's
are
addressed
in
and
here.
submitted, but we haven't seen it.
Right, and we haven't seen it, Kurt hasn't looked at it.
Then
You know,
once you
there are
close-
the other items that you brought up this evening about the landscaping. I have not drafted a motion for this evening because I wanted to hear from all of you about what your concerns are. And based on your different concerns, I still need to draft something that combines all of those together, or I need some direction from all of you as far as a consensus regarding the units that you have concerns about, backyard, and I can go, why don't I go through some of those right now?
I mean, I'm sure some will get clearer now. I mean, if anything, everyone could probably shoot an email with their rehash, you know.
So, and I think, Steve, what you were just about to say is that, as you know, if we close the public hearing, then the applicant will not have an opportunity to
Submit
provide
anything
new
else, right.
information. So that's the other thing that we may want to talk about. Is the applicant okay with, and you don't have to answer this right now, obviously, but is the applicant okay with the public hearing being closed and then the commission making decisions about
What we have.
possibly approving this with the elimination of
Of certain
units
Right.
X, Y, and Z, or putting barriers or some kind of restriction on the backyards, and development restrictions, or whatever you decide to go forward with. Just to put it on the record, the other option is for the applicant to withdraw and then resubmit with revised plans showing what has been talked about. What that would require is re-advertising. Well, I guess I should say that we would have to receive the application with the information, and then the commission would again have to go through the motions of deciding if it's a significant activity, which I would imagine you would say yes, then
Well,
just
yes, 'cause then
scheduling
you
a
have to talk
public
about
hearing.
changes.
But I could see that happening in one, 2 meetings.
Right.
Except the application deem it significant, then schedule the public hearing, but then notices would have to go
Because
back out.
technically, just correct me if I'm wrong, if we close the public hearing tonight, they can't really come back to a next meeting with a revised plan.
Correct, they cannot.
Even they may want to, but they can't, so that's where we're at, right? I just wanna make that clear to everyone, this is, our decisions we made and everything we have up to tonight at this point, so.
So why are we trying to close this public hearing?
Legally,
tonight?
we have to.
Yeah, legally have
Yeah.
to.
We
Because
have-
of the timeline,
You're only allowed to have
Certain
it.
amount of days.
for a certain amount of days.
You've got the maximum amount of extension, so it's kinda like we're up against the wall here, so,
And for them to, but without revisions, this.
Well,
It would
whatever we.
be-
Whatever we
Right,
deem
Right.
is right.
Whatever we
Oh.
predetermined, but we won't, my point is, in closing today, the information that you have now, what we will make a decision on at the next meeting, and they can't come in and change anything.
You mean the information I have?
What you just stated tonight, you're
About
gonna-
tweaking number 6, about
You can,
tweaking.
you
They
can
can't.
condition it.
you can condition it,
But we can't force them to change it, and they can't
They
show us
can't-
plans to change
they
it.
can't show us to provide application.
That's not right.
No,
Well,
That's not
it's,
right.
it's not right,
it's,
no.
but in
Wait,
fairness.
just-
I mean, it
just
may
to-
be
Just
right,
to talk
but it's
through
not
it,
right.
so just, when you say it's not right, you mean like that it's not fair for the applicant? Is that what you're saying, or
Well,
just,
so
I just want you to explain?
I don't think it's fair for anybody. I mean, I'm not going to approve this with just some special conditions saying, rotate this house that way and do this and do that. I mean.
Ideally, you'd like to see some revised plans.
I'd like
give
to
us
see
a-
some, yeah.
But the
yeah.
thing is that because this started back in July, I mean, again, I'm not placing, but.
It's just like the other one.
There was it was a very, it's a big application, and there was, and some of the things,
And there was some late
were delayed. Yeah,
stuff
I was
in
getting
there.
to that, I'm gonna mention that. There were some things that were submitted late that took longer to revise, which, extended the public hearings and extended things, as we went on. So, that puts stress on our staff to come and get back to it, even though, I'm sure there's no intention on the applicant to do that. But the fact is that, we need a certain amount of time to process everything and, in a timely manner to make decisions, like to hear from Kurt, what I mean? Getting him information like last week with and kudos to Kurt for getting through that and at least getting something done, but it's really not a really good way for anyone, for us to do business that way, because you want to do a thorough application.
Right.
For the applicant and for
Sure.
The town.
and for our wetlands, so,
So.
that's where we are.
So for them to withdraw and resubmit, then they would resubmit the plans with the changes. Fees involved with
That
new
would be up to the
application?
commission. There would be at least $60 that we would have to
Because
pay
they
the
have to
state
advertise.
fee and cover the
I
advertisement.
think we would waive.
We would waive
we would
everything-
waive the fees.
everything
That's
that
not
we
even a
could.
question, and we've done,
Right, I mean,
that's. we
because
have a
they
precedent for
paid
that.
over, I think it was $3,000
No,
or
we
something.
wouldn't, we're not gonna get half. We're not doing that. But, the $60, that
You're
goes-
on video.
I think.
The $60 a week, that's the only thing we can ask. I'm just saying, this is the option we have here, so, right, but of course, no, I think we all agree, we're not here to, pad our fees, we just, wanna cover what it's just due, so we won't, so,
So I guess the ball's back in your court.
Not exactly what you're expecting tonight?
It was an iteration of what I was expecting this evening. I wasn't expecting, in light of Mr. Lord's work, testimony, time, effort, field analysis, and multiple reports where he offered the opinion, and the only opinion, that the activities would not create or present an adverse impact on the wetland. We had anticipated concern by this commission, and we respect the concern of this commission, but we did not anticipate the number of the units that you would like to see removed from the plan, and to simply ask an engineer to move or tweak a unit is more easily said than done. As you all know, there's repercussions and reverberations associated with playing with the lines on a page. So it sounds easy, but I think the reality is much more difficult. So we had planned this evening's meeting in an effort to be able to close the public hearing, to be able to at least put this part of the process to bed. If the disposition and temperature of the commission is that we would not earn ourselves an approval, then it seems to leave us with very few alternatives, because we don't want a denial. So given that the hour is late, and I appreciate that, can you give us just a few minutes to have a conversation, and then we can get back to you about what we're going to do?
Absolutely.
Do you want to recess?
Yeah, why don't we take a, like a 10-minute,
Yeah.
5-minute recess?
Yes, 10 minutes.
10-minute recess, and we can come back sooner.
have any further discussion about this?
I think so.
We wanna close
Yeah,
the public
Because-
hearing,
because
so-
it would be
the
nice-
recording's back on, just
Yeah.
if you want to call it to order.
Oh,
I'd like to call this back from our recess and call the meeting to order.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes.
I-
Yeah,
I'm
he needs to be
waiting to
recognized.
be
Gotcha.
recognized.
Go, yes,
All
sir.
right. I just thought that it might be helpful for you if we gave you some concrete guidelines as to what we expected as far as setbacks in the 100, how much can be in the 100 without being restricted. If you go beyond that, how much restriction is there going to be, et cetera, that you have something to go by, that you don't, when you revise the plan, we don't want you to come back here to us and then we say, well, you know, we don't like this, we don't like that. I think, you know what I'm saying? So I just thought we should come up with these guidelines. We talked about 12 feet behind buildings approaching, and then we concluded, okay, let's put vegetation, plantings behind these things. But, you know, what encroachments are we not going to accept at all? And what encroachments will we work with you on with restrictions?
I mean, I don't know if we can do all that tonight, but I mean, we
Yeah.
certainly should.
I don't think we can do that tonight.
But I think
I-
we need
I don't
to talk, and I think, yeah.
I'd rather see the minutes get written up as far as what we have discussed. That, I think that captured almost everything. I really don't think tonight, it's kind of late. I don't really want to do it tonight myself.
Okay.
We could respond. We could respond to the comments, obviously not in a thorough way, as if we had the opportunity to prepare for another hearing after having taken all the notes. But our experts have thoughts and information that they can provide, a lot of which you've already heard. So don't want to repeat that. Certainly, the engineering side would take some time to have to consider the recommendations that have been made by the commission, and that's not something that can be responded to right now. But you've heard Mr. Lord already offer his opinions as to, and you've read his opinions as to the mitigation systems, and I believe you even mentioned that you're optimistic that the system will function the way it's designed and the way it does presently, which to me, you know, what I hear is no adverse impact will occur through the development. So I'm a little struck by the number of units the commission wants removed, and I recognize that this is the kind of push and pull that exists between commissions and development, but where we're leaving off right now is we're not. That's not going to. Some of these things would be problematic from my client's perspective, and I recognize that some of what we're proposing is problematic to your perspective. So it feels as if there's some more work to be done, and I don't know that we can close that gap this evening.
That's probably a very accurate summary. And again, because we do want to state, just speaking, we'll speak, but I mean, I think we are very close. There's been a lot of work. I'm not trying to discount the work, from Mike and I mean, they've done an excellent job. It's just a big project, and sometimes when you have projects like this, and you run out of time in this, it's just the way the regulations go and everything. Like I said, I think we're close, but as you said, I think we each have some things that we need to work out.
I agree.
To get to hopefully get to a final resolution where we can move forward with this.
Yeah.
I don't know, are we really close? Because we're asking for a significant
Well-
amount of houses to be taken out.
No, there's like 8.
That's
Well-
still a lot of houses.
Closer than, I know what you mean.
Eight out of the 100.
109.
Well, I recognize maybe when you do the math, but what, from our perspective, what we feel is being missed is the analysis of the why. The commission had said, and again, I don't want to take any more of your evening, and again, I appreciate the fact that you're even here and allowing us to present before you on a non-regularly scheduled meeting. But there is no precedent that's set by an individual application or approval. You may hear somebody like me come up and say, well, you did it here. Would you consider doing it again? And the commission is not bound by common law, statutory law, stare decisis. You can make your decision based on the merits of every application that's in front of you, as you've done for years and years. And the prior application for this same parcel was approved. And frankly, we feel that we've improved upon it. But that application had even more impacts in more units. And it wasn't as well thought out in terms of the impact on the wetlands. So it's not a matter of if you say okay to us that you're going to be bound by that in perpetuity for the next group of people that come before you. Because as a matter of law, you're not, certainly. And every application, frankly, stands on its own. And while the sewers are a part of it, and the public water is certainly a part of it, as Commissioner Pagano has mentioned, the compensation area has been exquisitely thought out and designed. It's going to be a significant improvement, both in terms of the functionality and in terms of the presentation of this property. So, we feel that the engineering and the development and the site work that has gone into this has been done with a significant amount of thought in planning towards keeping the wetlands as free from unintended impact as possible to both an engineering and soil scientists, what would be permitted by proper engineering standards in the review of a licensed soil scientist. So, I don't expect the commission to have to explain yourselves. I respect and recognize your positions, but from where we sit, we feel we've put a lot of expert testimony into the record, some of which has been accepted, some of which apparently has been rejected, but we don't understand the why. So, with that, unless we would like to work for another 45 minutes or an hour, I think we're left with one alternative. The silence is deafening, so
Is it worth
For
it to
me
like
personally-
list out units that are an absolute, the 4 commission members, I heard a lot, some commonality between 2 members,
Yes.
but not all 4.
And Steve never got a map, so he wasn't able to preview it before tonight, and we still haven't gotten all the information back from Kurt.
Right, no, I understand that. I'm not saying, I don't have a motion. I'm just
Right.
talking about the units, and I don't know if there's some kind of agreement that can be conveyed to the applicant of saying, these units, we really would like to see removed. And if a motion were to be made at a later date, this would be stated in the motion that approval with the modification of removal of X unit. Yeah.
Would there be a possibility if, let's say, it was agreed upon to accept the plan as is with the removal of, let's say, 8 units? Could they reapply at a future date for those 8 units again?
Yeah, I
Or
don't
some
see why
would.
not.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I think it would be essentially like an amendment to a site plan. Yeah.
I mean,
Or like a phased, that was one thing that Kurt and I were talking about a few months ago is, is there like a phased option? I don't know how we would do that, but that's similar, so it's an option. It's just having the units numbered is helpful because then we can clearly state which units. It would just be I just wanna make sure from an administrative side that it's clear which units are approved and which would have to come back.
Since you said phased, isn't the first part of the development gonna be where the apartments are anyway, off of Fowler Road? Or was it the other way? I
Yeah.
forgot.
No,
Off
they're gonna
Notch
build,
Hill.
build out the Notch Hill side first, right?
Right.
They're gonna come in from that area, the construction will,
And that's where there's the most controversy.
well, there's a wetlands crossing there, and there's that
Right.
road, and I think those are units 6, 7, and 8, or 7, 8, and 9 around that corner.
Mhm.
See, I thought that would be a good place.
Oh, before you can get to that proposal, you started, but then I know where I was gonna ask where you're going with that, but.
Yeah, I was going with that because if you didn't have houses, I mean, you don't care about that.
Right.
And I, well, I could be swayed.
Well, it's just tough to do it
I
at this,
just- yeah.
this juncture. I would love to have more discussion and do stuff. It's just,
But,
lateness of it, it's just hard to.
yeah,
And I wanna be fair to Carrie too, because she needs to have some guidance, you know, we
sure.
can't just talk in generalizations.
But this here, this is important to me. This is the trolley trail continuation. So that is a problem. Yeah, that's a problem.
But the one stands right in the middle of it.
Right,
I see what
right
you
in the
mean.
middle.
Right.
And when they came down, they would have to come down, follow the sidewalk here, cross here, follow to there, and then continue. But they're not doing that anyways. I'm not expecting them to do a trail across the road. But that's important to me.
No, I'm not judging or saying anything. Everything's important to whatever's important, any agency member.
What I think is what you feel, it's, but what he's
Like
stating.
there's Bueller's there, where he's running, like in trampoline.
Okay. I'm sorry that I still would not have anything with it.
I agree.
Okay.
Within the 50s, I agree.
Well, I think that's important to state.
Yeah.
And I did state that right from the start.
Well, but no, I'm saying for if there's an agreement,
We
so that
don't
they
do it,
know.
period, in the town anywhere, sewer or no sewer.
So I think that's important to state that that's definite, if you were to proceed.
Except I don't have a problem with the 50 up in the areas that have been already excavated.
Right where all the piles are, right.
And
Yeah, and
I agree with
I'll
that.
give up 81 and 82. Those are the only two that I'll give up. Which is the excavated
What do you
piles.
have left?
It's
Six
just
of us
one
is trying to
thing,
make it
7 and 8.
Seven,
Do you
seven
have
and
minutes?
8.
That's been really good.
Let me
And
have my
then
paper.
it all fell.
Let me take this. You have 7 and 8. Let's see if we can get to something here.
No, sorry, it's 6, 7, and 8. but
6, 7, and 8. What else?
Number 9,
Okay.
number 24.
Yep, 26.
That one's not in the 50, but it's right on the edge. That's the two.
58.
No, but it's in the 100%.
Right, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
28 and 30, or 29 and 30, or 100,
58 and 71.
Oh, 24 and 20, okay.
58, 71, and then 109.
You would do 58 now. So how many are you saying you want to eliminate?
I have 8 so far.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 so far. What was the other one you said? You said
109.
you said 58.
And 71.
58 and 71, I'd even give up because they're right on the edge.
What do you mean give
But
up?
she's given, like, as in, they're just barely touching the 50.
Oh, so you mean don't remove them? Okay, so which ones again, what are you?
6, 7, 8, 9. You want 13.
Never mind, I want to know what you want.
24.
Yeah,
24.
yeah.
The 109.
You're not even. okay.
28, 29, and
24.
109.
28.
Wait.
What, wait, 29, 30? What did you mean?
29, 37.
29,
Now
30.
you're being punchy.
Sorry, I'm sorry, my eyes are looking very
And
That's
what
why
was-
I thought I was writing it down.
And what was the last?
109.
109.
Can I read them back to you, because I don't think I have them.
Mhm.
So 6, 7, 8, 9, 24, 109. What else am I missing?
29 and 30.
Oh,
29, 30, and 109. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 8.
So 1, 2, 3, 4,
I
5, 6, 7.
had to get my-
Wait, and then what the
So,
the tweak
so,
of-
so you're not concerned about this one? You said 24, 26, you're okay with?
26 is just on the edge, so the 25 comes right to the point, but it doesn't cross it, which means
So
there's no
how,
backyard.
so where is this one? How
It
much
touches,
is?
it crosses.
It touches?
No, it crosses.
But how much? More than the other one that you said more than 58?
No, yes, more than 50 and 71. Yeah, let me get my bearings. This one, see, it comes right across the house, the middle of the house. That only touches the little corner right here. But it comes up to the house. That's the same with 58 and 71, it comes right up to the corner of the house. That's why I said I'll do that one.
So you included 24, isn't it? But 26 can stay, is that what you're saying? I don't have that on the list.
Mhm.
Okay.
Are you flexible on any of this?
I was,
Are you?
I opened it up to a lot.
I know, and I would as well, but.
Yeah, I gave back all of these that I did.
Now, why is that one bothering you?
Because this is right along the understood course.
Which one are you talking about?
And it's 109,
Okay.
and this is not correct.
Yeah.
And this one touches the back corner.
The back
That one
corner,
bothers me.
over the back corner of the
It goes over
50.
It's almost 100% removable, and it is just a lot.
Would you be comfortable with any kind of restriction?
Well, I really have some plantings behind it.
All
And
right.
that's what
So
I'm-
then there would be no yard back there?
No yard at all.
So could you live with that?
That's a duplex.
To make it standard condition, that's not a problem.
Well, when he was over here showing the plans, the plans came over here, and then they were over here, and then he wanted this much, which would have taken him back to here, but the 50 is all the way up here. So it goes right on the edge of the, that means there's no backyard. And this one, we already talked about, would have no side yard. This one would,
Okay, so,
but
so,
this one would have
so,
no side and no
so,
back.
so if they
That's
have,
part of the duplex.
okay, so be it, maybe it's gonna sell for a few thousand less. I mean, I mean, if you.
Not every once in a while, they just
Right.
be happy with that.
But
So
you
you're
would
not gonna
have
take them
trees,
on
you would
anyway.
have trees within 15 feet, 20 feet of the back plantings and
It
stuff.
would be 15, it wouldn't be 20.
Well, I know
It's
everything
right
that I
within the
planted,
50 area.
15 though, yeah, but I know everything that I planted, if I plant it within 15, will be touching.
Well, the other
Soon.
thing that bothers me with that one.
The
Mine is
plantings
only
that you had,
15.
were they pines or spruces?
The ones the town made it put in was pine.
The other thing that bothers me with this one is that since this is undisturbed, when they build, they're going to tear down everything. That's original wood, and that's why it's disturbed, because it's already touching the 50 and the
Why would they take down?
because there needs to be.
Well, why don't you restrict it? That everything's done from this side. I think you could.
109 and 110 one of your concerns?
109 is, yeah.
So,
If you look at the grading, if you look at the grading for this duplex, I don't have my scale on me, but I'm pretty sure that the duplex is probably exactly 50 feet at its closest point
It
to
is.
the well. If you look at the grading, this is if you were to look at the original topography, there's a ridge, there was a ridge that runs between the well and, all the way along where we walked, when you walk in on the left. Where the stockpiles are, there was a ridge right where the stockpiles are like this, and part of that drained toward the wetland and part of it drained the other way. We recreated that, and in doing so, this is actually a slope like my hand down to these units. There's a ridge line right here. So they really can't, because it, how do I explain this?
So there's an uphill burn
Things are
separating
blowing
it
up,
from the
is what you're saying,
wetland.
right?
You walk out the
Real
back,
backyard.
So it's
you walk out the
slope.
back of the unit, literally
It's gonna be
10
slope
feet
up.
away, it slopes
Oh,
up
okay.
to a ridge, and then it goes back down to the wetland. Just that particular building I noticed, because I heard, I could hear you discussing that, those units.
you see, but this is why I do think we need some more time. Because I don't want to put you guys in a position of having to make
recommendations or potentially an approval with conditions where we can design a better plan and you guys can, approve a better plan, or not better, but, different, that addresses some of your concerns, and we have the chance to respond, and the process has the opportunity to work, so. I think at this point, the best alternative would be to withdraw and refile.
Okay. And as we said, we're gonna waive all the fees except like a $60 fee that we have no choice in, so that should, the police won't be concerned.
Posted.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of time and effort went into it, but it won't be time wasted because it's the same project with this, essentially the same plan.
I mean, you'd be starting from here, not starting
From the
over.
beginning. I agree.
It's, if anything, it's like, famous Vincent Lombardi said he never lost a game, he just ran out of time, so.
And we shouldn't
I guess
need
somehow
sidewalks.
it's-
That was one of my questions. I don't know if we're going to need sidewalks again.
I wouldn't think so.
Sidewalks for what?
Sidewalks.
Unless
would
you
doubt
wanted to
it.
go there and show them the swale.
You could go, other than you maybe on a private walk.
We've kind of covered pretty much, I would
So,
say.
before we close everything up, just while we're thinking about it, and so I can type this up, can you all just run through those unit numbers that you have absolute concerns with, so at
6,
least.
7, 8, 9.
Okay. And I can write this in an email too. Okay,
24,
yes,
29, 30,
yes.
and 109.
Even
And
if,
13.
Even though
And
he
113
explained
and
that the
113, you said-
embankment is coming down to
And
109.
13.
oh,
And
13?
13.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he just explained that that's not
And
in
the 109.
Yeah, I'm okay
I
with 109.
understand that. What I want to know, though, is where, right now, the original woodland is and what kind of restrictions we have to put at the development in the actual building to keep it in the front and not to disturb any of the wood that's there already. Because this is touching the 50.
I think we need to have, we're gonna have a discussion of what we wanna do with some of these, unique situations. So we'll have an answer for the applicant the next time, because
And
we
you
do
want
have to
13,
discuss that.
correct?
Yep, I put that down.
I just wanna point out, that's almost 10% of the houses, right? If there's 103 houses,
Yeah.
right, that's almost 10% of it. No, it's not 109, it was,
There's 97 buildings.
right. So it's 10%.
Approximately, yeah. No, they-
If you look at the number of buildings,
If you
which
look
is
at
what we're
dwellings,
talking
it's
about,
still
that's
pretty
almost
close.
10%.
So the numbers that you identified, those are the buildings, did I hear right, that you want removed? Or that you had?
The reason being is we don't approve anything within 50 of the upland review. And these are all within 50 of the upland review, except for 29 and 30, which are completely within the 100.
So
There's
those-
nothing outside of those.
So those, I don't know how many there were, but those buildings you just listed, those are, just to be clear, those are the ones that you went through.
So there are eight.
How many were there?
Eight plus 13, plus number 13. But
You were-
the 8 that were listed,
And
are
109,
because
number
of-
109 doesn't have to be removed, but there will be restrictions in the building of it, so that none of the construction goes behind the building to take away any of the woodlands behind it, because that's within this 50, and it's still original
But I
wood
thought
back there.
109 is, we just talked about 109. 109 is with the, has to be recreated slope.
Yes, but the woods come right up to it.
So when you're doing the
Up to what?
construction, I think if I might, Ashley's concern is that when you do the construction, if you have excavators over on the wood side and stuff, the lot's gonna be destroyed. But you could do your excavating and all your
On the
construction
road
from the unit side towards the road. You don't have to get back in the woods behind it.
Yeah, but where I'm still confused, on 109, he just explained that there's a ridge,
There's a berm.
there's a berm there and a ridge. So you're saying that ridge isn't there, or they're not gonna be allowed to put it back?
We're trying to recreate it.
Because I heard him say he's gonna recreate the bridge to put it back to the way the property was originally, a dozen years ago, however many years it was. Now you're saying that's not acceptable.
I'm saying
and
that I don't want any of the woodland behind there
I don't
removed.
agree with you on this.
Okay, that's fine.
I think that they have,
And
that
that's
that's a
what I said.
legitimate.
109
excuse
doesn't
me,
have-
I think that's a legitimate request that they have, to put it back to the way it was. I think that's unreasonable. I think you're being unreasonable with this.
So we're, just to be clear, maybe, and I know we're gonna withdraw, but maybe this will help for the future meetings. We're not going into the woods. When you come in Fowler Road and you walk and all those piles are on your left, that long distance, 1,200 feet or so, we're not going into the woods anywhere.
Okay.
All we're doing is we have to, and I've said this, you've heard from Karen, I've said it in meetings and staff, I've said it here. Unfortunately, those stockpiles went right up to the woods in most places. When those come out, even if a machine went there tomorrow and they start hauling all those out, we'd be left with disturbed land right to the woods. We want to go in, regrade it properly, recreate that ridge I talked about, and plant it as we've shown. Because we didn't, Carrie will tell you, it was our idea to do this landscape buffer, to go in there and restore the areas that have been disturbed by the stockpiling. The stockpiling happened, as you can see, a long time ago before we were involved. We just feel it's the right thing to go in and restore it. We're not going into the woods at all. We're going right up to the edge of it in places, only because the stockpiles go right up to the edge.
I'll withdraw 109.
While we're talking about things, the road alignment coming in from Notch Hill Road, I know I can't redesign that road. That road is there. It's in the location, the alignment it is to meet road standards, road design standards. And the road, we think, from a public safety standpoint, traffic circulation standpoint, your emergency responders, we've had all these conversations, we think coming in from Notch Hill Road and creating that connection diagonally across 22 to 80 for a big development like this makes total sense.
I don't think any of the members have an issue with the road. We were actually glad to see it because the previous didn't have a clear-cut entrance. It had a safety.
And they crossed the wetland with emergency access.
There, and that wasn't even gonna be, so,
That's not true. I said right at the beginning, I wanted the road redesigned.
So
well, I'm speaking for myself.
I know, but you
I
said
don't
none of
I'm
the
sorry.
members had a
Okay,
problem with that.
sorry, I should not have spoke for you, but I'm just saying.
Unfortunately, I can't, I'd love to redesign it and get it out of the wetland.
It's more the houses in that area that
Well, I can tell you right now, I don't have an issue with the design of the road as it is current. So, at least from my point of view, the way the road is designed now, I'm okay with it.
I mean, that's why I feel too, the road isn't, to me, the issue.
And there's plenty of and there's 4-to-1 mitigation for everything you're disturbing. I don't have a problem with it either.
It's good to know, because when we come back, these are good, right?
Yeah, no,
to
it's
know.
good, it's good.
So, and I, just to echo what Attorney Bort said, I personally really appreciate you holding this special meeting. I really mean it, and I appreciate you continuing to talk to us at 10:30 at this
Okay,
meeting.
that's it.
Thank you.
It's all been much
We
less.
hope
we'll
we've
talk
given you some
later.
information. I know we're not at the ending that we all would have liked to see, but at least if we didn't have this meeting, we wouldn't have had this discussion. I think hopefully it's beneficial to everyone.
It certainly is, it certainly is, yeah, so.
Okay.
Okay, so I will, Carrie, are we good, or do you want?
Yes.
All right, so I'll send you a
Send me an
letter.
email. Okay.
Thank you all. Do it all again next month.
Yep.
So I guess you need, for Robert's rule, a motion to adjourn?
No, we have to close the public hearing.
First, we need a
Oh,
motion to close
well-
public hearing, and then, well, actually, it's withdrawn.
Right,
Close
it's
that.
withdrawn,
So it's a motion I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you for getting the.